A dragon the length of a city block came out of the floor and screamed at the sky. And every single person on that playground decided in the same half-second that I was about to become the most important human being in the province. I was standing in the middle of it. 18 years old, second-hand school armor, a white grade sword I'd been issued that morning like a cafeteria tray. Above my head, a phantom dragon was unfolding wings wide enough to put the whole field in shadow, and behind it, packed in rows going back further than anybody could see, hundreds of beast phantoms were bowing. Bowing. To the thing over my head. The dragon opened its mouth and said something in a language nobody in that school had ever studied, and all 3,000 of us understood it anyway, right in the middle of the chest. Dragon, lord of all beasts. Beneath the sun, the moon, and the stars, the dragon's soul is eternal. Then it flapped once, and the tornado it made picked up half the track surface, and every other phantom in the yard crumbled like wet paper. A few of the survivors flattened themselves against the ground. The rest just stopped existing. The light collapsed into a single point and hit me in the forehead, and a voice in my skull said congratulations on obtaining the SSS level talent, Affinity of All Beasts. Dragon Language Mage, 3,000 people were thinking. Dragon Blood Warrior, hidden class, 1 in a billion. This dump of a school in this nothing city, finally on the map. The principal stomped 1 foot on the leadership table, which exploded and crossed 40 meters of playground in about a second and a half. Both hands on my shoulders, grip like a car crusher, face right in mine. Li Wei, what was your first job advancement? Dragon Blood Warrior? Dragon Language Mage? I read the words off the panel in front of my eyes, out loud, in my own voice, to a man whose entire school budget was standing on the answer. Dragon Tamer. He said, question mark? The playground said, question mark? Then somebody at the back laughed. Then 3,000 people laughed at the same time, and I'll say this for the acoustics on that field. They were superb. Now let me explain what they were laughing at, because it's very funny, and it took me about a month to find it funny too. A dragon tamer is an upgraded beast tamer. A beast tamer contracts magical beasts. A dragon tamer contracts holy dragons and true dragon bloodlines. Only those. The contract automatically rejects anything diluted, the low-earth dragons, the lizard-adjacent stuff, anything that isn't the real article. The principal's face went through about 6 weather systems, and he asked, very carefully, whether I was certain. Only holy dragons, nothing else. I nodded, and the noise got worse. Because here's the math every person in that yard did instantly. There are maybe a handful of confirmed dragons on this entire planet. The weakest sub-dragon anybody has records of would go toe-to-toe with a 4th-tier powerhouse, which is the rank where humans stop being called strong and start being called national assets. And me? I was level 10. I was a level 10 orphan holding a sword the school wanted back. I'd drawn the 1 in a billion class. It's a key. There is no lock. Enjoy. And understand where I was standing before that circle lit up, because it makes the joke land harder. This is a job change ceremony. Every 3 years, every kid who turns 18 and hits level 10 stands in that circle and finds out what the rest of their life looks like. 100 years ago, a game called God's Realm decided to stop being a game and merged with the actual planet. Surface area multiplied by 10 million, dungeons unfolding everywhere, monsters in the daylight, and ever since, you are either a transferer or you are a bystander in your own species. The classes are a ladder, and everybody knows every rung. Combat on top. Mage, archer, warrior, the good stuff. Enhancement underneath. Blacksmith, enchanter, alchemist. And then, way down where the light doesn't reach, life classes. Cook, miner, herbalist. The teachers give you a speech every year about how no first-tier profession is trash. There is a reason they have to keep giving it. Your talent decides your rung, and talents run F up to S. That morning, the kid behind me had complained to my face that his D-rank stone skin was going to doom him to a support class, and then asked what I had. E+. Cooking mastery. Below him. Below basically everybody. The single most useless entry on a list of useless entries. And I've been carrying it since the day I woke up in this world 7 years ago, with somebody else's childhood in my head and an orphanage address on my paperwork. So when a dragon came out of my magic circle, you can imagine the recalculation. The head of academic affairs was on his feet. The principal had gone the color of a stop sign. My homeroom teacher, who had spent that entire morning having her performance review dismantled by the smug man who runs Class 1, was staring at the sky and having what I can only describe as a religious experience. For about 90 seconds, I was the most valuable 18-year-old in the province. Then I said 2 words and became a punchline. So, congratulations, they were saying. You got the 1 in a billion hidden class. It's a key. There's no lock. Enjoy. Useless. Absolutely useless. He wants to catch a dragon as a pet. Buddy, dream bigger. Catch 2. My family had a dog once with a little dragon blood in it. Mangsh, though. The principal patted my shoulder and told me, with the warmest smile a man can produce while dying inside, that it was still a hidden class. It had never appeared before, and it definitely had research value. Research value. He said it out loud, in front of everybody. Somebody actually snorted. I stood there being told to my face that my professional ceiling was getting sliced up and put on slides. Then he gave me the advice. College entrance exam in 1 month, he said. When you go into the secret realm, avoid monsters. Try to get lucky and find some weak ones. Sell the materials. At least you'll be able to feed yourself. That's what he had for me. Avoid monsters. Feed yourself. And through all of it, standing there in the wreckage of the most public humiliation available to a person my age, I was having a genuinely wonderful time, because 10 minutes earlier, something had turned on inside my head that nobody in that playground could see. Ding! Congratulations on activating the strongest beast taming system. Newbie class gift pack incoming. Congratulations on obtaining 1 dragon egg. I walked back to the classroom past 40 people arranging their faces into pity, sat down at my desk in the 3rd row from the back, and pulled up a warehouse panel that existed only for me. And sitting in it, quietly cooking away, was a crimson egg the size of a human head with gold veining crawling across the shell. Dragon Egg, SSS. Tame it with the dragon taming art, and it hatches into a blazing holy dragon. I closed the panel. I looked around the room at everyone being so kind to me. My homeroom teacher was in the corridor explaining my results to the Class 1 guy in a voice like a funeral. I packed my bag and left early with a smile on my face, which the entire class found deeply concerning, and which I did not explain, because the system had also just handed me a challenge quest, and I had a month. Become the top scorer in the city on the entrance exam. City champion minimum. Full marks makes you provincial. Reward declining. Failure penalty. Severe. Cool. Very cool. Love that for me. Home is the Anning City Orphanage, which is a courtyard with a gate that doesn't lock and a roof that has opinions about rain. I pushed the gate open and got swarmed inside 4 seconds. Kids on both legs, kids on the back, one small one hanging off my arm like a fruit bat. And by the time I got to the inner yard, I was less a person and more a tree with a monkey problem. Li Ma came out from the back to see what the noise was. She's the one who runs this place. Middle-aged, kind face, hands like a woman who has cooked for 40 children a day for 20 years, which she has. She raised me. Her class is cook. Her talent is E+, cooking mastery, same as mine, exactly, down to the plus sign, which I have never once mentioned to her and never will. What did you change into? Are you a cook? She asked it the way she asks everything. Like whatever the answer was, it was going to be fine and there was food inside. I told her it wasn't a cook and that it was a secret and I'd tell her in a few days. I lied to her because she's the only person in the world whose disappointment would actually land on me, and because I already knew what she'd do with the truth. She'd say it was wonderful, then she'd go stand in the kitchen and worry about me for a month. She scolded me for being dramatic and told me to come eat. So I ate, in the dining room, with a lot of small children, in a building where the paint comes off the walls if you lean on it wrong, and then I went to my room, shut the door, and took a holy dragon egg out of thin air. It was hot. Not warm, hot. The kind of hot that changes the temperature of a room. Gold patterns moving very slowly under the surface like something turning over in its sleep. And when I held it in both hands, I could feel it breathing. I cast dragon taming art on it. Unfortunately, taming attempt failed. Again. Unfortunately, taming attempt failed. Again. 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 Until my mana ran out completely, and I was sitting on the floor of a room the size of a closet, sweating, holding a very warm egg that had rejected me 9 times in a row. And that's when I realized I could feel it in there. Not words, an attitude. The distinct, unmistakable smugness of something small and comfortable that has decided you are not worth waking up for. There was a note under the egg's description, and I went back and read it properly this time. A blazing holy dragon hatchling's favorite food is divine fire jade marrow. Offer it as a gift while taming, and the success rate goes way up. Divine Fire Jade Marrow is an S-grade treasure. You could sell me, the orphanage, and every child in it, and you would not have the down payment. So I sat there in the dark, holding the answer to my entire life inside a shell I could not open, which is a very specific flavor of misery. And then the system rang again. Beginner Quest, Phase 1. Go to the Yulin Mountain Range. Hunt 30 cat demons. Reward, 1 bottle of Divine Fire Jade Marrow. 20 free attribute points. Time limit, 3 days. I want to be clear that I understood exactly what was being offered here. Cat demons run around level 11. I was 10. I had a training sword and armor with a school inventory sticker on it. 30 of them meant walking into a valley alone, at the bottom of the food chain, with a month until the exam that decided the rest of my life. I put on the armor. I left a note on the table so Li Ma wouldn't panic. Then I went to catch a bus to a monster mountain at 4 in the morning, which is how I ended up standing in the Anning City Adventurers Guild in the dark, discovering that 3 of my classmates had had the same idea. The Adventurers Guild at 4 a.m. is busier than my school at noon. Wilderness monsters respawn on timers, rare materials pop back in at random spots, and the commissions with easy money on them get grabbed in seconds, so the hall is full of grown adults hunched over their phones at 4 in the morning like it's a concert pre-sale. Mixed in with them, a whole crowd of students doing the same thing for pocket change. Hey, isn't that Li Wei? 3 of them. Chen Hao, who has the face of a guy who's already sold you something. Wang Ming, glasses, mage, and Ye Ling, warrior, mage, priest, frontline, damage, support, storybook party. Ye Ling is the daughter of one of the richest men in the city, which you could work out in about 2 seconds without being told, because she was holding a scepter with 3 enchant crystals set into it. Level 10, purple grade. My weapon was white grade. On the equipment ladder, white, blue, purple, gold, spirit artifact, sacred relic, she was 2 full colors above me before either of us had killed anything. Chen Hao came over grinning, because of course he did. You? Here? Aren't you the dragon tamer? He let that hang for exactly the right amount of time. Hidden class. I really thought it'd be something. Wang Ming laughed. Ye Ling didn't. She also didn't look at me, which, at the time, I filed under rich girl indifference, and which I would later reclassify. Chen Hao turned his back on me mid-sentence and started fawning at her. Whatever quest you pick, Miss Ye, we'll stay right by your side. I took every commission on the board with Cat Demon in the title and got on the light rail. They got on the same one. And 3 level 14 men got on with them. Big guys, the kind who introduce themselves by putting a hand on your shoulder. They'd attached themselves to Ye Ling's party somewhere between the guild hall and the platform, and they spent the whole ride assuring her that with 3 uncles like them along, this quest was going to be a walk. She frowned the entire time. She didn't want them, but apparently when 3 level 14 strangers decide they're joining your party, the 2 boys you brought with you have a quick conversation with themselves about what they're actually willing to risk, and then everybody smiles and says, "Welcome aboard." I got off at the Yulin Range at 5 in the morning with birds screaming in the dark, and walked into the outer forest alone, and behind me, 6 people went the other way. I want you to remember that ride. It comes back. The Cat Demon Valley was about 2 hours in, and there were not 30 of them. There were about 40. Level 11s, all of them, moving in a loose pack across a rock shelf with a kind of body language that says this valley is ours and has been for a while. 40. I had a training sword and the confidence of a man who had checked his skill list very carefully on the bus. Because here's the thing about Affinity of All Beasts that nobody at that ceremony bothered to think about while they were laughing at the name on my certificate. It doesn't just add attribute points. It sits underneath every single beast tamer skill I own and multiplies it. And beast tamer skills are not about hitting things. I walked out onto the rock in the open, in full view of 40 monsters, and used Supreme Beast Intimidation. Nothing happened for about 1 second. Then the entire pack went down on its front legs, all of them. In a wave, front row to back, 40 cat demons flattening themselves onto the stone with their heads down, making a sound I had never heard an animal make, which I can only describe as worship. The valley went completely silent except for that. One of them dragged itself forward on its belly to get closer to me. I stood in the middle of 40 prostrate monsters and had a genuinely complicated moment about what I was about to do. Then I did it anyway, because Li Ma was working 3 jobs, and there was an egg in my room that wouldn't open. 42 of them. It took a while. Cat's paw, over and over, in a valley where nothing fought back. Ding! Beginner Quest Phase 1 complete. The bottle appeared in my hands, and it was the single most beautiful object I had ever held. Liquid fire with something like liquid jade suspended in it, and the heat off the glass alone made the air over it shimmer. One bottle of divine fire jade marrow, an S-grade treasure sitting in the palm of a kid whose class was announced as research material 3 days ago. 20 free attribute points landed on top of it, and underneath that, the next quest, with a timer already running. Tame the cub. 24 hours. I got back to the orphanage that night, and the courtyard was quiet, and I found out from one of the older kids why. The donor who'd been covering this place, the one whose money kept the lights on and the kids fed, had died. That was it. That was the whole system. One man, and when he stopped, it stopped. Li Ma had picked up 2 more jobs, 3 total. She was 50 years old, with an E+ life class, and she was working 3 jobs. And she had come home that evening and cooked dinner for 40 children anyway. And when I walked in, she asked me if I'd eaten. I went to my room, and I did not do anything dramatic, because dramatic doesn't buy anything. I set the bottle on the desk. I got the egg out. I held it in both hands, and I could feel that smug little presence in there, wide awake now, absolutely aware of what was on the desk. I uncorked the bottle. Then I cast dragon taming art. Congratulations, you have successfully tamed it. First try after 9 failures because I'd shown up with snacks. The shell came apart in my hands, not cracked, came apart in pieces of light, and the heat rolled out into the room in a wave that made the window glass tick. And sitting in my palms, wet and furious and about the size of a house cat, was a small crimson dragon. Blazing Holy Dragon, female, level 1, 4 legs, 2 wings, gold fire patterns running under the scales on her belly, and a pair of eyes that focused on me and then went straight past me to the desk. She hit the bottle like a missile. She drank the entire thing, an S-grade National Treasure Tier reagent, gone in about 4 seconds, with noises, and then she started growing. Right there on my desk, in a room where the bed takes up most of the floor. She went from house cat to something over 1.5 meters long, and my desk stopped existing, and I got a face full of wing, and the level readout on her went from 1 to 5. Strength 500, intelligence 500, physique 450, agility 450. I had 15 in everything. My new pet had 33 times my strength stat, was 7 hours old, and had just eaten the most expensive thing I would ever own without asking. She looked up at me, still chewing on nothing, and made a noise like, "Gawoo." And I sat down on the floor of my collapsing little room in the orphanage, laughing so hard I had to put a hand over my mouth so I wouldn't wake the kids, because 3 days ago a principal had told me to avoid monsters and try to feed myself. I named her Firefly Wine because of the way the gold in her scales moved when she was pleased with herself, which was constantly. Everybody just calls her Little Jew. The next morning, I took her out past the range's outer line to find out what she actually was, and we ran into a Minotaur pack, level 15s, 6 of them, big ones, the kind that flip a car for fun. I got maybe half a word out. Little Jew inhaled. I have watched a lot of things burn since then, and I still think about the first one, because it wasn't fire the way fire is supposed to work. It didn't spread, it arrived. One breath out of a creature the size of a large dog, and where the Minotaur pack had been standing, there was a shape in the air with nothing left inside it, and the grass on either side hadn't even browned. Divine fire is a very rude piece of physics. 6 of them, 1 breath. My level 5 dragon looked back at me for approval. I said good girl, and I meant it. And then I got to watch her sniff at what was left of a Minotaur, recoil, and refuse to eat it. Flatly, nose in the air, would not. I offered again. She turned her whole head away. I want to be very clear about the situation this created. I was a level 15 nobody standing in a monster range with the single rarest creature on the planet, and she would not eat raw meat, and there was no shop. So I built a fire, and I cooked it, trimmed it, seasoned it with the 2 things I had in my bag, and cooked Minotaur over an open flame in the woods like a man on a camping trip, while a holy dragon sat on a rock 4 feet away with her tail going, watching my hands, making increasingly demanding noises. E+, cooking mastery. The most useless talent on the board, the joke I'd been carrying for 7 years, the thing the boy behind me in class had used to feel better about his own bad draw. She ate everything, then she ate the second one. Then she put her head on my leg and went to sleep in front of a fire in the middle of a monster range. And I sat there with my back against a tree, doing arithmetic in my head about how much a creature that size was going to eat when she was full grown. And I promise you, I lowballed it by a factor I would not learn for months. We stayed out there 3 days. Black-scaled rhinos, an azure star leopard, everything the outer range had. I went from 10 to 15. She went from 5 to 7. And on the 3rd day, with my quest done and my egg hatched and absolutely nothing left owed to anybody, the system pinged with something I hadn't asked for. Random quest. Hero saves the beauty. Rescue Ye Ling. 12 hours. Rewards, 2 diamond chests, 1 legendary chest. 12 hours. 2 diamond chests and a legendary. I've never moved that fast in my life, and I want to be honest about why. It wasn't the girl. I'd spoken maybe 9 words to Ye Ling in 3 years of school. It was the chests. I found them in a small valley near the inner edge of the range, and I got there late enough to be interesting. The ground was a mess. Cat demon bodies, minotaur bodies, and among them the 2 big ones, an elemental cat demon, level 14, and a mutated minotaur, 15, the sort that punches the ground and knocks a whole party off its feet. They'd killed both. That was genuinely good work. It had also emptied them completely. Chen Hao and Wang Ming were gray. Ye Ling had burned everything she had, keeping the 2 of them upright. Priests do that. It's the job. And standing off to one side, barely breathing hard, were the 3 big men from the light rail. Because that's the trick, and they'd been running it in these mountains for over a decade. When it gets dangerous, you don't spend, you hold. Not because you're scared, because the only thing that matters at the end of a hard fight is who still has something left when everybody puts their weapons down. Gao Jin, Bei Dao Peng, they picked up their axes. Wang Ming tried the only card the 3 of them had. He shouted that their captain was the daughter of the richest man in Anning City, and that if they touched her, there'd be nowhere left in the province to stand. The 3 of them laughed until they had to lean on something. Kid, if you were just regular students, we wouldn't have bothered. Gao Jin was wiping his eyes. Regular students don't have anything worth taking, and if it goes wrong, there's paperwork. But the richest man's daughter? That's when Ye Ling's face went white, and I watched a very specific thing happen to a 17-year-old. She'd spent her whole life being the most important person in every room she walked into, and she just found out that the thing she was proudest of was the reason she was going to be sold. Kill the 2 boys, Gao Jin said, not the girl. The girl's worth money. And Chen Hao and Wang Ming dropped to their knees so fast I heard it. Spare us. We won't interfere. Do whatever you want with her. Just let us go. Ye Ling made a sound, not words. Wang Ming pushed his glasses up his nose. Then he turned around, raised his staff, and put a spell into her. She hadn't even seen it coming. It knocked her off her feet and left her in the dirt with her scepter 3 meters away, and Wang Ming lowered his staff and said in a completely level voice, There, now I've done it too, so we're in this together and we won't talk. Take her. Take her gear, take her ring, take whatever her father pays. Chen Hao and I will say the monsters got her. Gao Jin looked at this 17-year-old with genuine admiration. Good lad, vicious and quick, and he knows to put a bond down. He nodded. Both of you strip her kit and hand it over. Every piece. Then you're witnesses, and witnesses go home. They stood up and started walking toward her, arguing quietly about the scepter. Huh. I was told there'd be 3 fatheads out here, I said it from the tree line. There's 5. Everybody spun around. For about 1 second, Ye Ling's face did the most hopeful thing I have ever seen a face do. Then I stepped out where they could see me, and it died. Because I was filthy, and I was carrying a school-issue longsword, and everybody at number 1 middle school knew exactly what I'd rolled at the ceremony. Oh, it's the good-for-nothing, Chen Hao said, and just like that, he wasn't scared anymore. Gao Jin frowned and asked if they knew me. Gao Jin, to be fair to him, was the only careful person in that valley. My info panel was locked to private, so he couldn't read a single number off me, and he didn't like that. We know him, Chen Hao said. He's nothing. Kill him. And that settled it. Li Wei, run, Ye Ling was screaming from the ground. Get out and tell my father. Tell him these bastards killed me. Make him avenge me. She'd already done the arithmetic, in the dirt, bleeding, and she'd gotten it right, too. If she was worth a ransom, they'd keep her breathing. If I ran and talked, there'd be a floor under how bad this got. She was buying herself a floor with the only currency she had left, which was me leaving her there. Gao Lei and Gao Peng moved to cut off the exits. Chen Hao and Wang Ming took the other 2 sides. 5 people, boxing in one. I don't like your face, Gao Jin said, So choose, do you walk into it or do we carry you? And I want to describe my emotional state precisely, because it was not brave and it was not noble. 3 days earlier, a man had crushed my shoulders in front of 3,000 people and told me my class was worth studying. And now, here were 5 more of them, and one of them was a level 17 career bandit who thought he was doing the deciding. Fine, I said. I'll practice on you. I drew the longsword. They all came at once, which was the correct call, and I want that noted. They took me seriously enough to bring everyone. It just didn't matter, because level 15 for a dragon tamer is not level 15 for anybody else. Strength 80, intelligence 80, physique 70, agility 70. Gao Jin, the strongest of the 3 brothers, had 50 strength and had dumped every free point he'd ever earned into it. Everything else on him was under 30. I had 80 across the board, at 2 levels below him, because the strongest hidden class in the world hands out attribute points like it's trying to get rid of them. They saw a kid with a training sword. They were walking into somebody with the stat block of a level 20. I stepped, and the step took me out of the box entirely, and I came out of it behind Chen Hao. He was the one who said kill him. He got to be first. He went down with a novice longsword through him, and a look on his face like the world had broken a rule. How is he that fast? Wang Ming, you said he was trash. I don't know. You said you were going to kill me. I was smiling. I could feel it happening, and I did not stop it. Come on, then. Gao Jin didn't panic. Give him that, too. He shouted for Plan B, and all 3 brothers dumped the axes and pulled heavy shields instead, and instead of charging me, they started walking. Slow charge. Shields up, weight low, center of gravity locked, closing the triangle a step at a time until there was nowhere left to be. It's good tactics. Against a fast opponent, you don't chase, you shrink the room. And he still had a spare plan on top of that. He sent Wang Ming to go grab Ye Ling as a hostage, just in case, while they were already winning. I watched a mountain of a man walk toward me behind a shield, and I smiled, because these 3 were level 17, and I was about to introduce them to the actual problem. Dragon's Berserk. Dragon scale lines came up through my skin. Every stat I had went up 20%, all at once, and then my right arm started changing. The muscle came up like something was inflating underneath it. Crimson scale rolled down from the shoulder in a sheet, divine fire patterns lighting as they went, and my fingers stopped being fingers. 5 claws. On fire. The valley went very quiet. Wang Ming stopped walking toward Ye Ling. Dragon Claw Assault. The shield Gao Jin had been so proud of came apart like a paper plate, and then he came apart too, and the other 2 turned and ran without saying anything to each other. Gao Peng got about 8 steps. Little Zhou's head popped out of my collar, and she had her paws out, ready to go, ready to help. I pushed her back down with 1 finger. Not for this. They're not worth you. Then I took a step, and I was standing in front of both brothers, and that was that. Wang Ming got on his knees before I'd even reached him. Please, I was wrong. I'll be your slave. I'll do anything. I'd like to tell you I thought about it. He'd put a spell into an unconscious girl to buy a bandit's trust and then offered to strip her body while she was still on it. He'd sold her for his own skin and then tried to make it permanent. That's not a mistake. That's a person showing you the whole thing at once. He went the same way as everyone else, and I didn't watch it happen. Ding. Hero saves the beauty, complete. 2 diamond chests, 1 legendary chest. Delivered instantly, no delays, no we'll process it next month, which puts my system above roughly every employer in this province. Li Wei, thank you. I had honestly forgotten she was there. Sure, classmates should help each other. I said it in the voice of a man reading a safety notice because I was already halfway into the reward panel in my head and because I did not want a relationship here. Ye Ling had spent her entire life inside a spotlight. I was a kid from the orphanage whose class had been publicly described as research material. There was no version of the 2 of us that made sense, and the only reason our lives had ever touched was a quest prompt. I said goodbye. I actually started walking. Wait! Her phone was broken. Her nanocomputer was broken. No map, no navigation, and 1 priest alone on a monster mountain at night is not a person, it's a delivery. I sighed at her, which she did not enjoy. And that's when little Zhou decided she'd been in a collar long enough. Small red head, golden eyes, straight into Ye Ling's face. Ah, a lizard? I have never seen anything get insulted that fast. Little Zhou puffed up to about twice her volume and shot a jet of flame past Ye Ling's ear, which I'm fairly confident translates as, "I am a blazing holy dragon, you awful woman." Oh, she's so cute when she's angry. That is not what little Jew was going for. Don't listen to her. I was already scratching under her chin. She has bad eyes and no manners. Ye Ling took that personally, then let it go, then went very still because she just remembered what my class was. Is that a dragon? I thought about it for about a second and a half. Then, yes. What kind of? Don't ask. It's rude to ask twice. She apologized immediately, which told me a lot about how she was raised, and she agreed to keep it quiet before I even finished asking. She understood the size of it better than I did, actually. A dragon tamer with an actual dragon would be the biggest news in the country inside a day. So we camped on a flat spot on the ridge, and I cooked unicorn rabbit over a fire while a holy dragon sat in my lap and let herself be hand-fed in shreds, which she did not need and enormously enjoyed. She'd have preferred to go full size and eat 4 antelope. There was a human woman present, so she suffered in silence, like a princess with a headache. Ye Ling ate 2 portions and looked at me strangely between bites. She's been eating food prepared by professionals since she was born. She had seconds of my roast rabbit. E+. Cooking mastery. Later, in my very ordinary tent, hers was 200,000 dragon coins, self-assembling, with folding appliances inside, which I mention only because I want you to understand the gap we're talking about. Deeper, I opened the chests. 2 diamonds gave me the Mystic Crystal Earth Scale Sword, purple grade, level 15, restricted to Dragon Tamer and Dragon Blood Warrior. 40 strength, 40 intelligence, 30 agility, and every hit stacking resistance on me. The Swiftwind set on top of that, attack speed, cast speed, movement speed, 30% each, and 20% damage reduction when the set is complete. A B-rank skill called Fire Dragon Bullet, which is exactly what it sounds like, and worse. And a top-tier Gene Enhancement Potion, which I drank on the spot. 50 points to all 4 stats, just like that. 130, 130, 120, 120. That morning, I'd had 15. Then I opened the legendary chest, and that's the one that changed the shape of my entire life. Bloodline Fusion. SSS Passive. Your dragon pet's blood merges with yours. You inherit 20% of everything your dragon pet has, and under it, in small letters, the line I read about 11 times. When you own 2 or more dragon pets, the inherited attributes stack. There is no limit. No limit. Little Jew was 7 days old and sitting at 800 strength. 20% of her landed on me before I'd finished reading the tooltip, and my panel jumped again. 290, 290, 254, 264. Nobody at my level in this country had numbers like that. Nobody was close. And that's a stacking passive with no cap, attached to a class that can only contract holy dragons, in the hands of a guy who at that moment owned exactly 1. I lay on the floor of a cheap tent in a monster range and did math I had no business doing yet. Little Jew, curled up on my chest, made a happy noise in her sleep. She was picking it up off me through the bond. Whatever I was feeling right then, she liked it. In the morning, Ye Ling came out of her hotel tent, washed and fed, took one look at me, and stopped dead. Because I'd gone up something like 115 points in every stat overnight, and that does things. My features had sharpened, my posture had changed, and there was something coming off me now that made a level 15 priest standing 3 meters away find it slightly hard to breathe. She asked, very carefully, if I'd always looked like that. Classmates should help each other, I said, and started walking. We got about halfway down the mountain before we walked into 6 more students. Good gear, expensive casual clothes under it, and the one in the white mage robe lit up like a vending machine the second he saw who I was standing next to. Ye Ling! Hello, Shukai. He came over, smiling. Then he clocked me out of the corner of his eye, and something went behind his face and shut a door. And this is? A passerby, I said, which was me offering him an exit. He laughed. He did not take it. One of his friends, a kid with dyed yellow hair, bounced over and asked if Ye Ling was his wife. Shukai said, no, don't be like that. We're just childhood friends, in the specific tone of a man who has rehearsed saying it modestly. And then the yellow-haired one said the thing that changed my month. Hey, Brother Shu, that wild realm we just found. We're 1 short. I turned around and looked at what they'd been standing over. A vortex in the air, spatial distortion, faint blue light coming out of it, a wild hidden realm. A dungeon instance that spawns at random on an open map. Adventurers go 30 years without seeing one. Clear it and the payout is obscene. Experience, gear, items, skills. Which is also why people die in them, because you find out what's inside after the door shuts. They needed a body, and a priest is the best body there is. Ye Ling didn't answer them. She turned and looked at me first. 2 days earlier she'd have laughed at the idea. Now she'd learned the thing you only learn once, which is that the people who know you are the ones with the best angle for the knife, and the stranger is the one who showed up. Shu Kai watched her check with me before answering, and the door behind his face locked. "Hey, brother," he said warmly. "Come along, we're short." I opened my mouth to say no. Ding, random quest. Seize the opportunity. Clear this dungeon and finish first in damage. Reward, 1 life skill second job advancement scroll. Sure, I said. Thanks so much. The panel came up as soon as we stepped through. Goblin Village, Silver Grade Realm, level 15 and up. 8 participants required, difficulty, hell. The reaction was immediate, and it was not good. A Silver Realm on hell? We can't do this. We should back out. I came here to get rich, not to get filed. Even Ye Ling went quiet, staring at the rainforest in front of us. The air in there was wet and hot and smelled like rotting leaves and things that had died in them, and you could see the edge of the space if you looked high enough, a purple curtain of light you can touch and cannot break. Once you're in a wild realm, the door is behind you and it does not work anymore. You clear it or you stay. Shu Kai pulled himself together and did the sensible thing. Everybody call your class. If the composition works, we go. If not, we walk. Warrior, assassin, marksman, swordsman, mage. Shu Kai himself, martial artist. Ye Ling, priest. And you, brother? Dragon Tamer. I have never in my life gotten a bigger reaction out of 2 words, and none of it was the good kind. Wait, you're the Dragon Tamer? From the news? Great, now we're carrying a dead slot. Nobody in that group went to my school, so they hadn't seen the ceremony. They'd just read about it. That's how far it had already traveled. Shu Kai came and stood a little too close. Brother, be realistic about yourself. Meaning? Meaning leave. You're a useless class. You'd be coasting. We can't hand you a share of the rewards for standing there. And I said, okay. I want that on record. I said okay, and I turned to walk out. Because it was their find, and I genuinely did not care about the payout. Ye Ling caught my arm. Xiaoling, said Shu Kai, and his eyes went very dark. What are you doing? He's strong. If he leaves, I don't think any of us clear this. 6 Faces did something extraordinary. Dragon Tamer. Strong. The dragonless Dragon Tamer. She had lost her mind, obviously. Grief, probably. Bad night. Xiaoling, that's ridiculous. How strong can a Dragon Tamer be without a dragon? I don't care, she said. He goes, I go. I'm not dying in here with you. That killed it instantly. Losing the priest means losing the whole run. Fine, he stays. Shu Cafe's jaw was tight. But rewards get split by damage percentage. Whoever does more, gets more. Priests accepted. Fine, said Ye Ling. I turned to leave anyway, purely out of spite. Ding. Second random quest. Clear Goblin Village. Reward, 50,000 experience, shared with Dragon Pet. 50,000, shared with Little Joe. Cool. Great. I'd love to stay. The village sat in a valley, built out of timber and scrap metal, with crossbows and catapults mounted on the roofs, and the towers were decorated. Dried human heads, rows of them, mounted the way you'd mount trophies. Every transferer who'd ever broken in here was still on the wall. Shu Kai started assigning positions like a man who'd read a book about it. Pang Zi, front line. Blue hair guarding the damage dealers. Everyone else on output. Watch your mana. Xiaoling, stay behind me. I'll protect you. And the Dragon Tamer, hang back, throw something at range, distract things. No need, said Ye Liang. Li Wei stays with me. We'll buff from the back. He nodded and let it go, and I watched him file the thought away for later, and I knew exactly what the thought was. People die in wild realms. It's normal. It's practically expected. First wave was sentries, 30-odd of them, and I got to see why everybody wanted Ye Ling. 4 buffs, weapon blessing, 20% to physical and magical attack, body strengthening, stamina regen, grace of courage, 10% to every stat, heavenly voice, 20% resistance. All 4 out, on 7 people, faster than most priests can land too. The whole thing took 10 seconds. The boys were delighted. Brother Shu, your childhood friend is unbelievable. Well, we did grow up together, said Shu Kai, glowing. Then, sweetly, of course, some people haven't done anything yet. They might not get much of a share. Everyone suppressed a laugh. Everyone looked at me. Second wave, the doors came off and about 100 came out. Goblin minions and frost goblin minions, level 15, silver double star, and the frost ones self-destruct. That one took 10 minutes, and it cost them. Pang Zi had absorbed 100 monsters worth of attention on one shield, and he was gray and soaked through. Brother Shu, I need a minute. I can't. Sure, rest. Shu Kai turned around, and his face was already arranged. We can't have Li Wei freeloading. Pang Zi's tired. You take the front. Silence. Because everyone in that yard knew what that sentence was. Dragon Tamer is a rear class with paper for armor. Putting me on the front line against a Silver Star wave wasn't a job assignment. It was a sentence with extra steps. No, said Yeling flatly. That's just killing him. Then how should we split it, Xiaoling? He can't tank, he can't shoot, so he just rides along and takes a cut? I can't ask my teammates to work for free. That's right, Brother Shu's right. Let him tank, pull him out when he breaks. Then I'll give up my entire share of the clear reward, said Yeling, as compensation. That landed like a chair through a window. A wild realm clear, the thing most adventurers in this city die without ever seeing once. And the richest girl in Anning had just offered to eat the whole loss so a poor kid from an orphanage wouldn't have to stand in front. Shu Kai's smile came off entirely. Hey, kid, are you a man? You're just going to stand behind a woman and say nothing? It's fine, Yeling. Don't pay anything for me. I stepped forward. Front row's fine. Then I drew the mystic crystal earth scale sword. The sound it made turned every head in the group.
Pangzi went the whitest because Pangzi was a warrior and Pangzi could read it off the blade. Level 15, purple grade, several tiers above the wrought greatsword he was holding, and Shu Kai and Yeling, the two richest kids on that mountain, were both carrying level 10 purple. Where did you get that weapon? I don't think I have to tell you. He didn't answer. He just walked over to Pangzi and used a message skill, and I want to be clear that I couldn't hear it, and I also didn't need to. Bloodline Fusion doesn't only hand me 20% of a dragon's stats, it hands me a dragon's senses. And dragons are exquisitely tuned to one specific thing in their environment, which is somebody deciding to kill them. Don't help him. Let the next wave hurt him. Then, at the elite, sell him. Pangzi asked if he could have the greatsword afterward. Shu Kai said sure. Third wave came at us in the open, and this time the goblins on the roofs got involved, spinning up the mounted crossbows. Yeling threw a holy light shield over the whole team, and a ballista bolt bounced off it, and I walked out of the shield. What are you doing? Do you want to die? Pangzu's eyes lit up. So did Shu Kai's, because there was a perfectly good shield right there, and I had chosen to leave it, which to them looked like the universe doing them a favor. I raised the sword and swung it sideways. Once, lazily, a dozen goblins came apart mid-charge. I did not retreat. I stepped forward, and the ground gave way under my foot, and I swung again, and the sword energy went out across the yard like a ripple on water, and the entire front rank stopped existing. Then I hopped onto a rooftop. The crossbow crews got one shriek out. One of the last ones swung a turret around and fired a steel bolt at my head at 4 meters. I caught it and snapped it. Then I cleared the roof, dropped back down into the yard, and turned around, and there were 7 people standing perfectly still, looking at me like I'd walked out of a wall. The monsters are dead, I said. Are we moving on? Nobody spoke. Blue Hair had to swallow twice before he could get it out. Why are you that strong? Am I required to answer you? 2 days ago, they'd have put me on the ground for that tone. Now they just stood there. From now on, said Yeling brightly, we do what Li Wei says. Objections? There were none. The rule in a party is that the strongest one commands, and I had just done in 2 seconds what would have taken them half an hour. I took it, not out of ego. Shu Kai and Pangzi had both put out real killing intent within the last 10 minutes, and I preferred to be the one giving orders to the 2 people who wanted me dead. Reward split stays as agreed, I added. Most contribution, most reward. Every one of them opened the damage panel at the same time. Li Wei, 80%. Shu Kai, 10. Zhou Chuan, 5. The rest, scraps. They'd been so busy watching me clear the third wave that they'd forgotten to attack it. Yeling handles all party assignments, I said. I'll roam. I don't want any of you slowing me down. They could not argue. That was the worst part for them, and I could see it happening. This morning I'd been the dead slot. Now I was the ceiling. The last thing on the road before the castle was 5 meters tall and wearing more steel than a bank door. Giant Goblin. Level 17, Silver 4-star. War Stomp, Charge, Mighty Slash, Skin Hardening, Support Summoning, Berserk.
immune to 30% of ordinary physical damage, and its helmet covered everything except a viewing slit. Careful, everyone. This is an elite. It was already moving. Charge plus skin hardening, its green skin going brown and hard like paint drying and fast forward. 5 meters of armored muscle coming down a village street like a runaway truck. Everybody scattered. Pang Zi was half a step slow because Pang Zi had never once put a point into agility, and he raised the shield. Pang Zi, who had absorbed 100 goblins on that shield without moving, went up and back like a coin off a table. And then the giant goblin planted a foot mid-charge, twisted its entire body around, and locked onto Zhou Chuan. Zhou Chuan, assassin, no chance, hit shadow stealth and dove into the nearest building. Idiot, I said. The screaming started about a second later. Support summoning was right there on the skill list, which means the empty rooms are not empty. All that thing had to do was pull the trigger and the buildings would empty out into the street. Of every place on that map, Zhou Chuan chose to hide inside the ammunition. The others went white listening to it. I didn't move, and I'm not going to dress that up. 10 minutes earlier, every one of those people had smiled while I was ordered to stand in front of a wave and die. A team is a word. What we actually had was 6 people and a knife. The giant goblin turned on Shu Kai. He ran. Instantly, no hesitation, and he went right past Ye Ling without slowing down. His childhood friend. The girl he'd been so careful to call Xiao Ling all morning, standing there with an empty mana bar. He didn't even turn his head. The rest went with him. The monster snorted and let them go, apparently deciding cowards weren't worth the calories. Then it looked at Ye Ling and started making a low, hungry, delighted noise, and its jaw came open. She ran to me. "Get behind me," I said. "This one's mine." I didn't make a speech about it. I've noticed since that the flat version works better anyway. "Then let me buff you." She emptied her whole kit into me, everything she had left, all at once, and my combat power went up something close to 10-fold in 3 seconds, and I finally understood why every party on this planet begs for a priest. The giant goblin came in the same way it had come at Pang Zi. Charge, skin hardening, bulldozer, 2 seconds to cross the yard, close enough for me to smell it. Kneel. I twisted my wrist and put everything I had into its shoulder. 30% physical immunity means the cut was shallow. What 30% physical immunity does not do is cancel momentum. 290 strength plus a priest's entire buff library arrived on one shoulder joint, and 5 meters of monster went down on one knee in the dirt. It made a sound I'd call outrage. In its own village, only the Goblin King gets to make it kneel. It went berserk. Muscles came up, pressure rolled out, its aura climbed. I smiled at it. "You're only brave because of the armor and the immunity," I said. "So, what happens if I put a fire dragon bullet through the eye slit at this range?" I don't know how much of that it understood. I let go of the sword. Fire dragon bullet had been charging in my other hand the entire time it was kneeling, and I put it through the gap in the visor from 2 meters. The thing about physical immunity is it's physical. Its magic resistance was terrible, and I had just poured a B-rank fire skill into a closed steel helmet. It didn't scream. There wasn't time. Yeling stared at the body, then at me, and asked the question with her face. Because she'd been watching for magic damage and she'd seen it. A dragon tamer with a purple greatsword and a B-rank fire skill. "Shall we keep going?" "We'll keep going. If you're scared, go ahead and leave. I can clear it alone." And I meant it. I had little Jo in my collar, who chose exactly that moment to pop her head out and squint at me, humming, extremely pleased, because she'd felt through the bond that I'd been thinking about her. "No," said Yeling. "I'm coming. I'm only support, but I can multiply you." "Fine, then it's 50-50. I'm not stingy with people who stay." Outside the realm, meanwhile, 4 figures came out of the vortex. 6 went in. Zhou Chuan was gone. Pang Zi was gone. 2 of the survivors had lost an arm on the way out. To grow one back, you need a 2nd-tier high priest and about 100 million dragon coins, so realistically, those were gone too. "Damn it. Brother Shu, what do we do?" "We wait here," Shu Kai's voice was very calm, "for Li Wei and Ye Ling to come out." Because the vortex was still open. A wild realm entrance only closes when everybody inside is dead or everybody inside is out. So the door being open meant we were alive. They sat down in front of it to wait, and one of them said the quiet part. "Brother Shu, what if he actually carries her through it?" Shu Kai didn't answer that one. Inside, I put both hands on the last set of doors and pushed. The hall stank of fish and old meat. The walls were decorated in human bone, and on a throne at the far end of it, sat the Goblin King. Level 19. And under the skill list, the line that ends most parties right there. King's Authority. 70% immunity to physical damage, plus a magic shield on top of it. 70% against a party whose damage was almost entirely swords. Humans? It opened its eyes, and the pressure came off it in a wave that put Ye Ling's back against the door. How many years has it been? No human has ever stood in front of me alive. It got up off the throne in fluent human speech, which somehow made it worse. And today, 2 of you. Li Wei, what do we do? Nothing. We watch. I didn't take my eyes off it. If it lasts 10 seconds, I'll be impressed. Ye Ling made a small noise. Ha! You're the first human who didn't kneel. It came down out of the shadows, armored, dragging an axe that could have taken a bus in half. The floor cracked in a web under each step. We'll see how long that lasts. We will, I said. Little Jew. She came out of my collar. The Goblin King didn't get to see what it was. There was a roar with dragon in it, and a storm went through the throne room, and the small red thing in the middle of the storm stopped being small. 10 meters, head against the ceiling, divine fire destroys the world, which is a form that multiplies her magic damage by 500%, and she was wearing all of it, a crimson mountain on fire in an enclosed stone hall, and the temperature went up so fast that Ye Ling had to shield herself to keep from cooking where she stood. I didn't feel a thing. That's the class. I get to stand next to it. Little Jew was holding back, by the way, deliberately. She'd registered that a friend of mine was in the room, so she was throttling the fire, and even at that setting, the Goblin King had to burn its own healing to keep its skin on. Ye Ling was staring up with her mouth open. I thought you'd contracted a low dragon. The Goblin King's ugly face was twitching. It had spent its whole life at the top of a food chain, and it had just met something it had to look up at. Then I said, Little Jew, and the 10-meter dragon narrowed her eyes, made a noise exactly like a cat being scratched under the chin, and lowered her head down to me. Level 15 human, blazing holy dragon bowing. The Goblin King saw that, and I watched the last of its confidence leave through the floor. Little Jew, see the ugly one? Gawoo! Breathe on it. 12 levels above her, 70% immune to physical damage, a magic shield in the kit. It got down on its knees on its own throne room floor. Mercy, my lord, I was wrong, One breath. There was no fight. There was no second phase. There was a level 19 silver 5-star boss, and then there was fire, and then there wasn't a boss, and the hall started going with it, because divine fire doesn't care what's structural. Stop staring. Get up here. I grabbed Ye Ling's hand and pulled her onto Little Jew's back, and Little Jew made a noise of profound personal offense. Consider it a favor you're owed. I'll cook you whatever you want, as much as you want, until you say stop. She stopped complaining instantly. Cheapest bribe in the history of the dragon race. I paid it that night, incidentally. 6 unicorn rabbits and a demon antelope over a fire on a ridge, and I kept cooking until she physically could not fit any more in, which took considerably longer than I had budgeted for. A deal is a deal. She has never once let me forget one. Her wings opened, the wind knocked the burning castle down, and we went up out of the fire and over a rainforest that was rapidly becoming a different kind of biome. Ye Ling held on to me the entire way with her eyes enormous. Then Little Jiao found an open patch of ground, landed, and made it extremely clear that the human woman was getting off now. 7 minutes 21 seconds. Rating SSS. A silver realm on hell difficulty, built for 8 players, cleared by 1 dragon in 1 breath. The chest that dropped was the reason adventurers spend their lives looking for these things. A C-rank priest skill book. A silver 3-star ring. A life skill 2nd job advancement scroll. A C-grade material. A silver 5-star greatsword. A Goblin King enchantment card. Ye Ling did the math out loud and then stopped doing it out loud. 300 million dragon coins. Her family is the richest in Anning City. Their whole company is worth 30 or 40 billion, built by 3 generations of her ancestors. We had just made 1/3 of a billion in 7 minutes and 21 seconds, and I watched a very rich girl quietly recalculate what money is. Little Joe, back to cat size, looked at all of it with contempt. 1 drop of her blood doesn't have a market price. She'd rather go home and be fed. I didn't contribute anything, said Ye Ling. Take it all, I mean it. Skillbook and the ring are yours. Rest is mine. She actually flinched. Those were the two most expensive items in the pile. Take them, but you're not getting them for free. There's a price. She went pink, and I could see her arriving at completely the wrong conclusion. 2 things, I said. 1, my contract stays secret until after the entrance exam. Not your friends, not anyone. 2, wire 30 million to my card, quietly. You're the Su family's daughter. You can manage that. She agreed on the spot. The truth is, I'd have had to sell that skill book and that ring myself. And a kid from an orphanage moving items like that draws exactly the kind of attention I couldn't survive yet. Handing them to her turned a problem into a favor, and a favor into a friend. And she'd earned it. She was the only person on that mountain who hadn't tried to get me killed. The system paid its own bonus on top, another second job advancement scroll, and a 50,000 experience pill shared with Dragon Pet. Experience pills are the single most controlled resource in this country. The 3,000 point ones are hoarded by families you've heard of. A 50,000 doesn't drop from anything under level 50. You cannot buy one. All right, let's get out of this swamp. Gawoo! Which means food, now. Shukai and 3 survivors were still sitting in front of the vortex when we came out. Xiaoling, are you all right? He was up and moving toward her before he'd finished the sentence, arranging concern all over his face. I'm fine. Thank you for your concern, she said, in a voice you could have chilled drinks in. I'm just so glad. I really thought neither of you would make it out. Who says we escaped? Yeling tilted her head. Can't Li Wei and I have simply cleared it? 4 faces stopped working. Don't waste your breath, I said. Let's go. And then the redhead spoke up. Wait, you cleared it, so you owe us a share. We were teammates. I want to walk through what he'd just said, because it took me a second too. He ran. He left 2 people to die in there. He sat outside the door for 2 hours waiting to see what fell out. And when it turned out we'd cleared it, he stood up and asked for his cut. Forget it, I said. I'm not arguing with garbage. Yeling, come on. I said stop, and the whirlwind slash came at my back. That's a D-rank skill, and it's the standard low-level swordsman finisher. The sword energy goes in and keeps turning. If that lands clean, it takes half my health with it. Yeling got as far as opening her mouth. I had the mystic crystal earth-scale sword out, and behind me in about 1/100th of a second, took the whole thing on the flat and twisted my wrist, and the sword energy came apart in the air. Silence. Because the redhead was level 17, 2 above Yeling, and he wasn't a student, he was a guard from Shukai's household, looked young, pushing 30, a professional who'd picked the exact moment my guard was lowest and opened with his best move. And I'd killed it with raw strength, no skill, just numbers. Sorry, I said. Was that a knife in my back? I was fighting for my share. You got the clear rewards and we got nothing. That's not fair. You ran out of your own dungeon. You did 0 damage to the elite and 0 to the boss. What exactly are you charging for? Fine. I'm a fair man. You put a sword in my back. Let's be even. I was behind him before he'd finished processing the sentence. He felt it, swordsmen have perception talent, and swung backward into empty air. Nia Xiong, you're left! Too slow. He kept the arm in the sense that it was still on the ground nearby. Nobody spoke. The redhead was making noise, and nobody else made any at all. Now, was ambushing me your idea, or Shukai's? Not talking. Fine, die then. The sword stopped a centimeter off his throat. It was Shukai. He ordered it. Kill him, not me. You're lying. Shukai practically came off the ground. I turned around and started walking toward him, and I wasn't in a hurry about it. Li Wei, you can't kill him, Yeling said it quietly. I looked at her. He's the Zhou family's second son. His older brother is at a top combat academy, and she wasn't begging for him. She was briefing me. Zhou family, prestigious, and a brother who will graduate into somebody important. That's a consequence with a schedule attached. Shukai exhaled. I actually watched the relief hit him. He'd heard my hesitation and read it as fear, and he started to smile. Then I killed him. I know, she'd just laid it out for me, but she'd laid out a problem, not a verdict, and there was an obvious solution standing 3 meters away in the form of 3 surviving witnesses. You're right, I said to the two lackeys, who had gone the color of paper. If the Zhou family finds out, I'm finished. They started nodding. So if I kill all three of you, the Zhou family doesn't find out, correct? 2 sword strokes for the whole group. It was very fast, and I'm not going to dress it up as anything. Ye Ling hadn't moved.
She was standing there looking at me the way you look at a road you didn't know was there. Ye Ling. I still hadn't turned around. Can I trust you? I felt her flinch. Then I heard a sword come out of a scabbard, which was interesting because I knew for a fact she was holding a scepter. A sword and a staff. Composite weapon, mage rod one way, long sword the other, twice the price, and worth it if your party ever loses a blade. Very rich girl. She walked past me, not at me, past me to Shu Kai, and she put her own sword into what was left of him, once, deliberately. Then she turned around and smiled. There, now I'm your accomplice. Every ounce of killing intent went out of me at once. Pleasure doing business, I said, and put my hand out, and she shook it. Actually, I should be thanking you, she said it lightly. You taught me 2 things. Lesson 1, never trust the people who know you, and always keep an exit. Lesson 2, when it's time, be the one who moves first. What do we do with the bodies? Little Joe. Ga woo! 1 breath, and there was nothing left on that grass to identify. Then she came and hung off my arm and made a long, pitiful noise, which translates as, I have been extremely good, and you promised. We stayed out in the Yulin range a while longer because the system kept handing me things, and because I'd told Li Ma a lie about intensive exam prep at a rich classmate's house, which bought me weeks. I used one of the 2 second job advancement scrolls on myself. Cook to spirit chef. Understand what that means here. An ordinary cook makes food that tastes good. A spirit chef makes food that tastes good and buffs you. Same braised pork, 20 strength for the next while, stamina, health. A full banquet from a spirit chef puts a party's combat power up 10% before anybody swings anything. That's why those scrolls go for millions, and why rich people can't use them and poor people can't buy them. I've been planning to sell both. I kept one because I was now the full-time chef for a creature that will not eat anything raw, and I did not intend to fall behind. Ye Ling ate my cooking every night for a week and finally admitted that she keeps 2 chefs at home, 1 Chinese, 1 Western, and neither of them is as good as a teenager with a campfire. E+, cooking mastery, the talent I'd been apologizing for since I was 11. Then I drank the 50,000 experience pill, and little Jew drank it with me through the bond. Me, level 18, 400, 400, 360, 370. Little Jew, level 10, which finished the last beginner quest, and the system paid out 2 S-rank passives, Fire Affinity, 80% less fire damage taken, and Dragon Battle in the Wild, which increases my combat power the longer a fight goes, up to 70%. And her numbers came in like this: Strength 1200, Intelligence 1200, Physique 1100, Agility 1100. She was 3 weeks old. Somewhere off to our left, an amethyst demon tiger came out of the trees, level 25, the local area boss, the thing this entire section of the range is named after. Little Jew hit it with a paw without turning her head. Ye Ling, who had been mid-seton, closed her mouth and did not open it again for some time. Ye Ling asked, very casually, whether I'd be teaming up for the entrance exam. Possible, I said, but you do exactly what I tell you. No arguing. If Anning City's 3 golden boys had heard the terms I set, they'd have come across that field swinging. They'd been trying to get on this girl's team for weeks. Deal, she said instantly. We took the subway home, and I hit my first real problem as a dragon owner. Security scanned my chest, detected a creature, and asked me to take it out. Fine, normal. Half this city keeps a beast pet. Little Jew poked her head out. Aw, what a cute little lizard. And you've dressed her up as a dragon? That's adorable. She has never recovered from that. Dragons in this world are legends. Nobody who works a metal detector expects the actual article to be sitting in a teenager's collar looking like a spicy gecko. I got my hand over her mouth before the flame came out. We made the train, then she got bored, poked her head out again, and about 9 young women converged on us at once. Sisters, come here, look at this thing. Can I hold him? Gawoo! Sorry, I said. My dog doesn't like strangers. For the record, in Little Jew's internal ranking, there is me at the top, then her,
and then every other living organism in the universe filed under garbage.
If I hadn't told her to behave, she'd have cleared that carriage.
I went the whole ride with a dragon on my shoulder and 4 women asking for my number, and I want it noted that I had never once been popular before in either of my lives, and it turned out the only thing I'd been missing was a lizard. Then I went to sell a heart. The job change market has 2 halves. B section is stalls, ordinary people, ordinary junk. A section is a luxury mall, and I walked into a shop called the St. Treasure Inn in 3-year-old clothes and got scanned by every customer in it. Hey, Li Wei, what are you doing here? Zhang Dan, classmate, on the arm of a very tall, very expensive young man. Selling something. Selling what? She was delighted. What could a charity case from the orphanage possibly have? You're not here to steal, are you? I need to explain Zhang Dan, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. Zhang Dan grew up in my orphanage. She got adopted out, and she has been coming back to step on me for years because somewhere in her head she's decided that the kids there froze her out and that I organized it, when the reality is that they just didn't like her. Since then, she's collected boyfriends the way other people collect receipts, and her current one was Ho Yibo, radiant knight, hidden class, all over the local news, widely tipped as this year's city top scorer, and, funny thing, Ma also publicly courting Ye Ling. I ignored her and went to the counter. Welcome, sir. Buying? Selling. Certainly. Just a small note. Mom, we don't accept materials valued under 10,000 dragon coins. Hear that, Li Wei? Said Zhang Dan. 10,000. Then she turned the full apparatus on Ho Yibo. The pout, the little voice. Honey, that boy was so rude to me. And Ho Yibo, who is not stupid, worked out in real time that the entire scene had been staged to get his card out of his pocket, and got his card out of his pocket anyway, because he was in public. 250,000 for a bronze 3-star necklace. Discounted. His allowance is 500,000 a month, half his month, in one sentence, for a woman who was already looking past him. See, Li Wei? Everything here is worth hundreds of thousands. Don't embarrass yourself pulling out some garbage you scraped off a hillside. Cash on the spot? I asked the clerk. On the spot, sir. Good. And I took the Goblin King's heart out of my storage and set it on the counter, still beating. The clerk stopped talking. Ho Yibo stopped breathing. The life force coming off that thing filled the room. Ugh, gross. You're selling that? Zhang Dan actually reached for it, genuinely, physically moved to smash it, because it was disgusting, and she was annoyed, and Ho Yibo caught her wrist so hard she yelped. Shut up, he said. Stop making a scene. He'd already understood. She hadn't. The clerk took it into the appraisal room at a speed that was not quite a run, and came back out with an entirely different face. Honored guest, this way. May I bring you tea? Is there anything at all you need? Zhang Dan swallowed. How much is it worth? The Goblin King's heart, the clerk beamed. At minimum, 30 million. Zhang Dan, silence. Ho Yibo, also silence, and a slight change in complexion, because 30 million is 60 months of his entire allowance sitting on a counter in front of an orphan in second-hand clothes. He turned around and left. Zhang Dan chased him, looking back at me every few steps with an expression I'd describe as arriving late at a conclusion. For the record, after our first hello, I never looked at her once. I walked out half an hour later with 30 million dragon coins on a card and the shop owner bowing me through his own door. My phone buzzed on the way to the station. Ye Ling had wired the other 30 million. Quietly, routed through 3 of her family's accounts so it wouldn't show as a transfer to an orphanage kid, exactly as asked, inside 6 hours of being asked. She never mentioned it again. Not once, not then, not later, not even when it would have helped her. I want that on the record because of how the rest of it goes. Whatever she turned out to be when it mattered, she paid what she owed me on the day she owed it, and she was 17. The gate at the orphanage was the same gate. The kids came out the same way, a dozen of them, all at once, up my legs. Li Ma asked if I was hungry. I said I was. She went into the kitchen, and I sat in the front room listening to the sound of an egg going into a pan, and I want to say something about her here. She never asks. In 7 years, she has never once demanded to know where I was or what I was doing. She just smiles and gives you room to have your own secrets, and then feeds you. She put down a bowl of egg noodles, and a small red head came up out of my collar and stared at it. Zhao Wei, what is that? So I let little Joe out onto the table, and I told her everything. Dragon Tamer, hidden class, blazing holy dragon, top of the entire dragon race. This is Firefly Wine. We call her Little Joe. I'd been hiding it for a month. There was no point anymore. In 2 days, she was going to be on a live feed in front of the Provincial Education Bureau. Li Ma stared. Even a life class cook knows what a dragon is. Little Joe, meanwhile, leaned over and sniffed the noodles. Then she inhaled the entire bowl in one go. My bowl, boiling hot, no reaction whatsoever, squinted with pleasure, hopped off the table, ran around the room investigating everything, found the kid's toy box, and started playing with a plastic truck. Whatever fear Li Ma had of dragons died right there. She'd registered, through the bond, that this woman was the person I loved most, and had decided accordingly not to show her any teeth. She's a snob about humans. She made an exception for exactly one. Oh, Li Ma. A classmate and I found an E-grade herb out in the Yulin Range. It sold for over 100,000. I kept my voice light. I'll transfer it to you tonight. I did not tell her about the 30 million. Not out of stinginess. If I'd put 30 million in front of a woman who works 3 jobs, she wouldn't have spent it. She'd have sat up all night trying to work out what her boy had actually done to get it, and she'd have gotten close, and it would have hurt her. 100,000 keeps the orphanage running. I could always find another herb. She gave me a lecture about being careful and telling her before I went anywhere like that again, and then she smiled more than she had in months, and I sat there and let a knot I'd been carrying for 7 years come loose about a centimeter. That night I was lying on my bed with my fist in the air like an idiot, saying, "Entrance exam, here I come," when a cat-sized dragon landed on my stomach from 3 meters up. I want to be clear that little Jew shrinking does not reduce her mass numbers. If I hadn't been carrying 20% of a holy dragon's physique stat, that jump would have hospitalized a normal man. She settled on my chest, made the cat noise, and lay there looking at my face. She doesn't have parents either. She came out of a system warehouse, and I have no idea whether it built her or stole her out of some holy land somewhere. Either way, I'm the only family she's got. 2 days later, Anning Square was packed with every third-year student in the city and half the surrounding counties. The reason this exam matters is money. Ordinary combat academies, 80 of them, split 10% of the nation's resources. 20 key academies split 20%. 3 top academies split 30%, and 40% goes to the front line. 3 schools, 30%. To get into one, you need to place top 100 in the province. The luxury cars started arriving. Han Yu, Holy Spirit Mage, white robe and a silver staff, moved like a prince and knew it. Then 2 more cars at the other gate. Ho Yibo, Radiant Knight, and Lei Shan, Punisher Marksman, both hidden classes. The 3 favorites for city top scorer, and they walked up to each other and shook hands in full view like a promotional poster. Only Dragon Tamers got no hope this year. Total waste. I was standing off to the side of all that, alone, where I like it. Then one more car pulled in, and Ye Ling got out with her scepter, and all 3 of them went to her at once. "Xiao Ling, I've been waiting for you." "Xiao Ling, have you got a team?" Lei Shan, who doesn't say much. "Team with me." Every girl in that square was watching this happen with murder in her eyes, and Ye Ling smiled at all 3 of them very sweetly and said, "I'm sorry, I've already got a teammate. Please find someone else." The square went dead quiet, because everyone knew the real reason those 3 were circling. The rumor around Anning was that the head of the Su family had once saved somebody important and had been repaid with a priest's second job advancement scroll, the hidden one, Hymn Singer, which becomes a Seraph 4 advancements down the line. Families in other provinces had already started calling about marriage. Her father had politely declined all of them, and nobody believed for a second that was the end of it. So half the province wanted this girl on their team, and she picked somebody else. And everyone in that square turned their head at the same time to find out who. She walked across the square to the guy standing alone in the corner and smiled at me in a way nobody there had ever seen her smile. "Li Wei, I'm here." Silence. Then the sound of a worldview breaking in about 400 people simultaneously. "Ye Ling, you're not telling me your teammate is this useless dragon tamer. He's my friend. Watch your mouth." "Ye Ling, friend or not, he doesn't deserve a spot on your team." Ho Yibo was being reasonable about it, which was worse. "In case you don't know, he's an orphan, raised in a home, and his class, without a dragon, is nothing." Lei Shan, 6 words. "He isn't good enough for you." The crowd joined in. "Is she blind? He'll drag her score down. He'll cost her a top academy. This guy has no self-awareness, ruining his goddess's future." Ye Ling went white with rage and opened her mouth. I caught her wrist and shook my head. She breathed out, put the sweet smile back on, and stood next to me, and that specific image, the 2 of us just standing there, was the thing that actually made those 3 furious. Then space rippled over the platform, and about 30 people in suits appeared on it. school heads, and 3 officials from the National Education Bureau. And in the middle of them, a man in his 20s who looked completely unremarkable. That's Wu Jian, King Yama's own student. He came here, to us? That's a 3rd-tier sword saint? He looks like a clerk. Idiot. At that level, the sword intent is so controlled it sits still as a well. 28 years old, level 65, 3rd-tier sword saint, personal disciple of Lin Tao, the man they call King Yama, who writes this province's exam and who is famous for one thing only, which is hating candidates. Wu Jian stood up and swept the square with his eyes. Your homeroom teachers have repeated the rules to you enough times. I won't. The exam has begun. Open the gates. That's it. That's the whole speech. I liked him immediately. Rows of silver-white doors came out of the air across the middle of the square, and behind them you could hear things growling. Earth Tomb Maze, level 13 to 20, 1 to 5 participants. Difficulty selectable, easy, normal, hard, hell. The square made a noise, because Earth Tomb Maze is the worst thing that has ever been used as an exam. Every year they run it, the solo clear rate is 30%, the team clear rate is 50%. Half the candidates who walk in do not clear it, and that's with a party. Team mode also scores 20% lower than solo, which is why the smart money teams anyway. A living 70 is better than a heroic 0. Everybody started picking easy. Miss Yero, are you certain about this? Han Yu, one last time, right before the doors. I'll say it once more. Li Wei is my friend, and he is stronger than all 3 of you. You have never heard a laugh like the one that got. I took her hand and walked her through the door before she could start swinging, and behind us, 400 people were making jokes about how she'd probably already died once with me. I'd been sitting on this for a month. We selected hell. The tunnel smelled like something that had been dead for a long time in a warm room, and the second Ye Ling stepped into it, she staggered, because every attribute she had just dropped 30%. That's the environmental debuff. Normal is 10%, hard is 20%. Hell takes a third of you off the top before you meet anything. Scent purification, I said, and cast it on both of us, and she made a small sound of pure relief. You learned that? Illusions and environments count in a realm. I bought it in case. Down the passage, something was breathing. I drew the sword and started running toward it. She threw 2 buffs at my back, weapon blessing and whispers, plus 10% attack and 30% speed. Ration your mana, 2 is enough. Level 1 of Earth Tomb Maze is the warm-up level. There were 100 zombies in it. Level 17, Silver 4-star, buried alive as grave goods when the Emperor died and extremely bitter about it. They came at me all at once. I put the sword through the front rank sideways and a dozen came apart. Then I jumped. 5 meters straight up, over the ones closing behind me, and while I was in the air, I threw the sword, not at anything, just away, at the far wall next to Ye Ling, where it stuck. Which should have dropped me straight down into 100 zombies with no weapon, except I'd tied a thread to the hilt before we walked in. I got yanked out of the middle of the pack and across the room a half second before the corpses I'd already killed detonated. Self-destructing poison mist. Every one of them pops when it dies, and they were standing close enough that the first dozen set off everything within 5 meters, which set off everything within 5 meters of that. I landed, took the sword back, and went in again. Second pass, same trick, except this time as I cut through, I was also throwing small black spheres into the middle of the crowd. Then fire dragon bullet, into the exact center of the pile. The fireball hit the thunderclaps and everything went up together. The remaining zombies burned, and burning zombies also detonate, so the entire hall filled with green fog rolling toward us like a tide. Ye Ling raised her scepter for a group purification. I stopped her hand, took out 1 white sphere, and threw it at the floor. A purification bomb, F grade. The kind of thing that sits in bargain bins. The fog was gone in about a second and a half, and the floor opened, and level 1 was over. Ye Ling stood there with her scepter still half raised. We're through? I used 2 skills. I found out what happened outside that door about a week later, when a very senior man drove to my orphanage to apologize on the doorstep and could not stop describing it. Outside, on the platform, 30 of the most senior educators in the province had gone completely silent, under 30 seconds. Wu Jian turned his head and looked at a row of principals. This, he said, is the useless class you were all discussing? Nobody had anything. My own principal, Xu Guang, the man who'd said research value in front of 3,000 people, was staring at a screen with a very particular expression on his face. The Anning City School Board director couldn't hold it in. Look at the body control. The first jump landed dead center of the pack. That pulls every zombie's aggro off the priest. Then that strength stat. 1 sword, a dozen dead.
And he'd tied the hilt in advance. In advance! He'd already planned the extraction before he entered the room. The props are the best part, said Wu Jian. Rules bar anything B grade or above. He solved 100 mobs and an area toxin with a thunderclap and a purification bomb. F grade junk. My teacher would applaud. And there was a second reason for that, which they all worked out about a beat later. You get 2 mana potions in this exam, total. Group purification costs a new priest about 1/5 of her bar. I hadn't just saved a skill, I'd saved her whole run. Level 2 was 500, 100 ordinary, 400 mutated, steel zombies with hardened skin, cursed zombies that buff the ones around them, night zombies with charge and trample and actual combat intelligence. Silver 5-star, all of them, level 18. Ye Ling went white. I did the math in about 1 second. I could take 500. I've got 20% of a holy dragon in my blood. It would cost me maybe 15 minutes. And in this exam, 1 second is dozens of places in the provincial rankings. So there was only one answer. Little Joe, come out. The summoning circle came up under my feet. Outside, on that platform, a row of educators watched a beast summoning array open on the feed, and every single one of them stopped breathing at the same time. Because they'd all seen that array 1,000 times. Every beast tamer in the world makes it. The problem was whose feet it was under. Dragon tamer. And a dragon tamer can contract exactly one category of thing. A claw came through the circle and cracked the floor. Then a horned head. Then 10 meters of crimson dragon, and her head went through the ceiling of the hall on the way up. That's a dragon. He contracted a dragon. Chen Jing, my homeroom teacher, the woman who had spent that entire ceremony getting her career review dismantled by the man from Class 1, was out of her seat with her fist in the air, shouting. Little Joe smelled 500 rotting corpses and made a noise of profound disgust. She didn't wait for an order. 1 breath, and level 2 was an empty room full of fire. Level 3 was the maze. 3 kilometers of winding tunnel designed to test perception and navigation, with walls a level 30 expert couldn't punch through. I pointed. Little Joe, flatten it. She grew. Not the normal form, the other one. Dark red creeping into the scales as they hardened, mass piling on past 30 meters, past 50, up to 100, head scraping the roof of the tomb. Strength shakes the heavenly vault, physical damage up 500%, magic down 500. Strength and physique both over 3,000 points. She put her head down and ran at the maze. 10 seconds, 2.5 kilometers of wall in a straight line, and daylight at the other end. On the platform, Wu Jian watched a level his own teacher had spent 2 weeks designing get deleted in under half a minute, and smiled in a complicated way. After that level, there's no point watching further, said the school board director. Even teamed, that boy is the top scorer in this province. Nobody argued. Meanwhile, on the other feeds nobody was watching, Ho Yibo had just cleared level 1 on hard and was walking toward level 2 thinking about how impressed the teachers must be. Han Yu spent 10 full minutes on 300 mobs, came out at 50% mana with his white robe torn, and thought to himself, I doubt Li Wei even got past this. Hell difficulty must be 500 monsters. It'd take them an hour. He was correct about the 500. Level 4 was the elite. Giant sewn zombie, 6 meters, 3 heads, 6 arms, a different weapon in each hand, human faces sewn into the torso. Level 21, gold 3-star in a silver realm, skills deliberately hidden. Gold 3-star means a strength stat over 300, mine was 400. Honest fight, that's 5 or 6 minutes of very careful work. Little Jew came through the door behind me at 30 meters and swatted it. Destructive flame claw, 1 motion. There was a soft noise, and then there wasn't an elite. Outrageous, somebody said outside. Note the forms, said Wu Jian, who is a sword saint and who misses nothing. 3 so far, balanced at 30 meters. The rampage form in the maze at over 100, that one made my heart move, and I am 3rd tier. And a 4th where it shrinks to a house cat and sits on his shoulder.
A row of educators quietly recalculated what they'd been laughing at. Level 5 had a sky in it. They'd built a whole separate space inside the realm, a plane, an actual horizon, weather, a realm inside a realm, just for one level. And standing on it were 10 giant sown zombies. Behind the 10, 2,000 mobs. Yelling went the color of paper. Outside, the platform made a sound. 10 elites and 2,000 ads in a college entrance exam? That's out of scope. That's just out of scope. It was written by King Yama. This is what he does. Everyone relax, said Wu Jian. That count is the team version. Solo gets 5 elites and 1,000. A genuine prodigy could still solo it. Nobody found this comforting, because they'd all just heard him say 1,000 monsters in the same sentence as could still. And they were right about one thing. Yeling wasn't a teammate here. She was a multiplier of the difficulty. Teaming doubled the spawn and thickened every health bar, and all she'd contributed since the entrance was 2 buffs. I was effectively soloing this at twice the intended load. Inside, I looked at 2,000 monsters and smiled, because monsters are experience, and I had a dragon who needed feeding. Little Jew, go. She went up instead of forward. 50 meters, wings out, divine fire coming off her in sheets, and she just kept climbing. A burning shape crossing a sunless sky, lighting up a whole fake world from above. Divine fire destroys the world, intelligence over 3,000. 2,000 zombies screamed and jumped and threw things at her, and not one of them could reach. She opened her mouth and poured. Half a minute, that's what it took. The elites lasted no longer than the mobs, because their magic resistance was somewhere under 200, and there was 3,000 intelligence coming down on them like weather. Then she flew one more slow circle to make sure nothing was still breathing, shrank, landed on my shoulder, and shoved her head into my cheek. Praise me, praise me, praise me. You were incredible. We'd never have cleared that without you, she purred like a cat, which she is not, and which she knows perfectly well. On the platform, one of the principals from number 3 middle school stood up and formally apologized to my principal. Then another one did. Then all of them did, one after another. And I want to be precise about this. They were not apologizing to Xu Guang. They were apologizing through him to me in advance, because they had all worked out at the same moment that the kid they'd been calling a waste product for a month was going to be somebody, and it is much cheaper to apologize now. Xu Guang smiled through it with his jaw locked. Because there's a rule in the national compulsory education system that says a student who unlocks a hidden class gets a resource grant. It has to be applied for by the school. Number 1 middle school never filed mine. They'd decided it wasn't worth the paperwork. He made a decision, sitting there, to come to my orphanage in person and apologize on the doorstep, and I was already at the last door. At the center of Earth Tomb Maze, there's a golden palace, and inside it something in a dragon robe and a crown turned around, with skin the color of iron. Who dares enter my mausoleum? Tyrant undead, level 30. Gold 5-star, skills hidden, level 30. In an exam rated for 13 to 20, gold 5-star means 4-dimensional stats around 500. Mine were 400. One-on-one, that thing kills me. I have been alone a long time, it said. It has been an age since I tasted human flesh. Attend me. And 10,000 things came out of the walls. Vengeful ministers in court robes, level 25, gold 3-star, with royal decree and soul drain. General corpses, 25, gold 3-star. Knight corpses, 23, mounted, charging, 10,000. And I got happy, because monsters are experience, and experience is Little Jew's next level. There is a mechanism in this level. Of course there is. Every impossible level has one. Something you say or do that stops the tyrant from calling its army. I could have gone looking for it. I didn't want to. I wanted the experience. All of it. Little Jew, big crowd, perfect. Let's try the heavenly vault form again. See if anything down there survives being stepped on. She grew to 100 meters in a lit palace this time, so everybody outside finally got a clear look. Her scales went dark, cooled magma, carbonized into plate. The claws went gray-black. The cute went completely out of her, and what was left was a god of demolition wearing armor it had grown itself. On the platform, they turned to Wu Jian, because Wu Jian was the only third-tier man in the room. Judging by the way it carries its limbs, he said, strength close to 4,000, defensive stats top tier, that form was built for close combat. Somebody made a noise. Look closer, strength and physique up, intelligence sharply down. So we can conclude this dragon has 4 forms: magic, physical, a balanced 30-meter default, and a house cat. Then I had Ye Ling buff me, told her to find a corner, and climbed onto little Ju's head. 100 meters up, with the tomb wind blowing, looking down at an army that had terrified a grown priest 30 seconds earlier, and seeing ants. So that's what she sees, all the time, every day. No wonder she walks around like that. I don't think anybody could hold on to humility from up here. What are you riding, human? The tyrant had intelligence. It was the only one down there that did, and it was using all of it to be afraid. It didn't send the army in, that was the tell. That, said Wu Jian outside, and he actually sat forward, is my teacher's mechanism. If you enrage the tyrant, it fights you personally and never calls the horde. If you frighten it, it loses the passive emperor's courage, and the elites stop obeying it. The whole platform arrived at the same realization at once, the hidden mechanism of the hardest exam level in provincial history, the thing you're supposed to figure out. My dragon had triggered it by standing up. Little Joe, straight through, step on the small ants first, then the big one. Her first step left a crater 3 meters deep, and the shockwave off it killed everything within reach before those things could move. Second step, same. The intelligent ones, the generals, the ministers, went white and ran, and her tail came around like a scythe and took roughly 1,000 of them off the board in one sweep. And then, in the middle of it, her eyes changed. I know that look. I've seen it when I hand her a new snack. She was enjoying herself. A level that had been designed to kill provincial prodigies had turned into a playground. She charged. The floor split, the buildings came down, and there was nothing left standing in the path. At the very end, the tyrant undead found some courage and ran at her. She stepped on it. Then it stood back up, golden light, advanced rebirth, the survival skill that only monsters level 30 and above get. She stepped on it again, with visible impatience, and this time the palace floor went with it. Then she shivered all over, and her steel scales started falling off in sheets and crumbling to dust, with new crimson ones already coming up underneath. She'd walked through 10,000 corpses and decided her armor was dirty, so she molted the entire thing on the spot. Ding! Earth tomb maze cleared. Difficulty, hell. Time, 12 minutes, 56 seconds. Performance rating, SSS. Duration rating, SSS. Overall, SSS. Outside, 30 educators had stopped moving entirely. There's nothing more to see, said Wu Jian quietly. This year's provincial top scorer is that boy. Nobody argued with that either. Xu Guang and Chen Jing were laughing out loud like people who'd stopped caring who was watching. Anning City's best result in living memory was an 8th place decades ago by a spirit master. Then Wu Jian turned around and his voice changed. Every word of this is classified. His exam recording does not leave this square. The fact that he holds a genuine top-tier dragon does not leave this square. Anyone who leaks it, I will not need a reason. Nobody breathed for a moment. National policy on transfer data is not a joke. If a foreign power learns a kid's talents before he grows up, they don't wait for him to grow up. The clear rewards came down in a column of light. 150,000 experience, 200 skill points, and 200 free attribute points. A title, King of Tomb Raiders, the Yin Wind armor set, the Tyrant's Command Scepter, level 25, gold 2-star, an enchantment orb, a B-grade material. How much experience did you get? 50,000, Ye Ling was glowing. That's so much. 50,000 is the floor, the minimum participation payout. On contribution alone, she'd have earned maybe 10. Which of these do you want? None. I got experience and attribute points and a score I couldn't have dreamed of. It's all yours. I threw her the level 25 gold scepter like it was a wrapper. She nearly dropped it. That thing opens at 80 million dragon coins at auction, minimum, and in a city like Anning, you can barely find good level 20 gear at any price. I'm the captain. I assigned it. Take it. Outside, the square had already turned into a comedy. Because we came out early, and in that exam, coming out early means one thing to everybody watching. You quit. 5 people teleported in right after us, 2 of them unconscious on arrival, their priest screaming for a medic. Then Ho Yibo came out. Filthy, armor cracked, having washed out halfway through level 5 on hard difficulty without ever seeing the boss. He looked around, saw us standing there, and drew the obvious conclusion. Ye Ling, I'm asking you straight, do you regret it now? He was actually smiling. Do what I'm doing. Retake next year. Team with me. Going in with that useless dragon tamer, what did you think was going to happen? Ye Ling's face went from cold to arctic. Then Han Yu and Lei Shan came out with a third person, a priest. Ho Yibo's face did something complicated. You teamed up? We agreed to solo hard. Sorry. Han Yu adjusted his glasses and pitched his voice for the crowd. I estimated that with Yama writing the paper, hard might not be soloable. So I brought Lei Shan and Guan Chang. And I was right, we cleared it. Solo, we'd have failed. He got a very satisfying wave of envy for that. Look how smart he is. He's the city top scorer for sure. The 3 top academies will send recruiters. That hasn't happened in years. It's your fault, Ho Yibo spun on me. You dragged Ye Ling off. My team would have beaten theirs. His team. He'd gone in alone. I didn't answer him. He wasn't a person to me at that point. He was weather. But I'll admit I was doing arithmetic about what would have happened to Ho Yibo if this conversation had taken place in a wild realm instead of a public square. Then 30 officials came down off the platform at once. Ho Yibo straightened up. Han Yu put on his best modest face. All 3 of them assumed the parade was for them. The number 3 principal walked up to Han Yu and asked warmly how he'd done. Principal, it was so difficult. We only managed 22 minutes 45, and our overall was just an A+. I'm ashamed to represent the school. That is the exact voice of a student who got 98 and wants to be asked about it. It worked on the crowd. An A+, holy crap, I got a B on easy. And then the principal said, not bad. Not bad at all, in the tone of a man being polite at a funeral, and walked around him. All 30 of them walked around him. Wu Jian came straight through the crowd to me and clapped me on the shoulder twice, hard, grinning like an uncle. Li Wei, very good, very, very good. Silence in a radius. Both of you go home and rest. Results in 7 days. A pause. And keep it to yourselves. We left through a square full of people who had absolutely no idea what they had just watched. Behind us, the education director was already listing the top scorer prize to Wu Jian, loud enough that half the square heard it. 2 A-grade Universal still books, 30 million dragon coins, a top-floor villa in Century Mansion, a set of level 20 purple armor, plus whatever the local pharmaceutical, forging, property, and automotive companies decided to throw on top. 2 A-grade skill books, first-tier cities give 1. The whole square went pale doing that math, and Han Yu started smiling so hard he had to look at the floor, because obviously the reason the supervisor had touched my shoulder was to be polite to Ye Ling's father's connections, and obviously the top scorer was going to be him. Lei Shan, who had been 5% behind on damage and could feel the money slipping away, went and quietly asked his own principal whether Han Yu was going to be city top scorer. Don't be ridiculous, boy. Of course he isn't. Lei Shan's whole face lit up. His principal looked at him with real pity. Don't get excited. It isn't you either. Then he had to go pull Han Yu into a corner and explain it to him, and I would have paid money for that conversation. I went to the largest meat market in Anning City and bought 20 demon antelope, 20 crystal black-haired pigs, and 20 unicorn rabbits. The vendors watched a teenager clear out their entire stock in one transaction, and I have no idea what they told their families that night. I also bought a commercial-grade barbecue rig. Then I went home and cooked all of it in the courtyard while 40 children screamed with joy. Little Joe came out of my collar and got mobbed instantly, and I braced because she does not tolerate being touched, ever, by anyone. She lifted her chin and let them. Every single one of them. Small, sticky hands all over a blazing, holy dragon. And she just sat there, with her head up, like a monument being admired. I think she could feel that there was nothing in those kids but goodwill. I think she'd also worked out through the bond that this courtyard was the thing I would die for, and she'd filed it accordingly. Li Ma stood in the doorway and watched all of it, and never once asked me how the exam went. Later, with little Joe asleep on my chest, I opened the results. 150,000 experience took me from 18 to 22. 700, 700, 600, 600, and it took little Joe from 10 to 12. 2,200, 2,200, 2,100, 2,100. 2 levels. 4,000 total attribute points. She was under a month old, and I was already having trouble imagining what she'd be at 30, and the system hadn't paid out yet at all. That challenge quest, city top scorer minimum, provincial for full marks, was still sitting there, open, waiting on results day. 7 days. Results morning, every family in the province was sitting in front of a screen at 9 o'clock. I wasn't. I already knew. I spent those 7 days getting the orphanage in order and asking Ye Ling to find me some reliable staff through her family, and then my phone rang. Li Wei, you're first, provincial top scorer. And you? Top 20 in the province. Thanks to you, I can apply anywhere in the top 5. She meant it. I have to say thank you again. Without you, Congratulations. Where are you applying? There was a pause on the line. My father wants Feng Tian Academy. Good school, strong faculty, you'll learn a lot. Right. She hung up, sounding heavier than she should have, and I went back to thinking about dinner, because I'd said I'd apply to Dongling. Different provinces, that's how it goes. Ding! Provincial top scorer confirmed. Challenge quest exceeded. Distributing rewards. Roar of the Fiery Dragon. S-rank Dragon Language Mage AOE. 200 skill points, 200 attribute points. Superior healing, S-rank talent. Any injury short of instant death heals itself. The Falling Flame Staff, Gold Grade, Level 20. Divine Fire from Heaven, an S-rank dragon pet skill only a blazing holy dragon can learn. The title, Dragon's Majesty. And an S-grade treasure called Heavenly Fire Divine Essence. Everything was S-rank. Every line. The staff alone would have started a riot at an Anning auction house. Gold grade doesn't drop from the hardest exam dungeon in provincial history, and the title, Dragon's Majesty, plus 300 to every single stat, and 20% to all dragon class skill damage. Titles normally give you 15 of something. This gave 1200 points and a damage multiplier. Then I took out the Heavenly Fire Divine Essence, which is made from 10,000-year fire coral out of the Endless Fire domain, and which comes with the note that an ordinary person who drinks it explodes. Little Ju smelled it from across the room. She sat on the table holding the bottle in both claws like a toddler with a juice box, popped the cork with her teeth, and drank a substance that would have burned through a human's mouth on contact. Then she burped, went cross-eyed, and started glowing. I picked up a very warm, very confused dragon who had the exact demeanor of a small child who has accidentally gotten into the strong liquor, and put her to bed, and she was out for 2 days digesting it. Outside, the province had lost its mind. Li Wei. 862 points. 200 clear of second place. And he did it in a team. Solo, they were saying. He'd have broken 930. Nobody had heard of me. Then everybody had. Every business in Anning City moved at once, because every business in Anning City remembered exactly who I was. They'd all heard about the Dragon Tamer from Class 3. They'd all agreed the kid was finished. The alchemy company announced 3 sets of B-grade herbs. Free, congratulations. A property developer offered the most expensive villa in the city. Free. Somebody offered his daughter, and got told off in public by the next commenter for aiming above his weight. The media couldn't reach me. The education director had put a wall around my orphanage, so they interviewed my classmates instead, and got 40 extremely uncomfortable teenagers on the record. Then Ye Ling agreed to an interview. Miss Ye, your impression of Li Wei? I'm not qualified to judge him. One word, strong. He's a dragon tamer. Winning implies he successfully contracted a dragon pet, doesn't it? I don't know. Ask him yourself. Do you have feelings for him? Will you two be together? I can say for certain that I have feelings. Whether we end up together is up to fate. Somewhere across town, 3 prodigies watched that broadcast in their own living rooms with faces like weather warnings. And the phone in my principal's office started ringing and did not stop, because every one of the top 20 universities in the country was calling to say they'd be here in the morning. They were, too. Magic teleportation arrays between provinces mean distance stopped being an excuse a long time ago. The conference room had 19 admissions officers in it, every one of them level 50 or higher. Every one of them looking at me the way you look at a find. And around the edges, Ye Ling, Han Yu, Lei Shan, Ho Yibo, and a few other top students from around the city who were about to have a very educational morning. The education director stood up, introduced all 19 by name, and then sat down and picked up his tea. How you convince this boy is your own business. Ice Spirit Academy went first. 15th nationally, 20 million dragon coins a year, 1 A-grade universal skill book, 1 B-grade experience resource. A large man from Heavenly Marshal laughed out loud. Stingy, this is a provincial top scorer and a dragon tamer. For all we know, the first one in history to actually hold a dragon. We'll triple everything Ice Spirit just said. 60 million a year, 3 A-grade books, 3 B-grade resources. The students around the room stopped breathing. In a normal year, that offer buys a provincial champion outright. The Ice Spirit teacher went quiet, and she wasn't embarrassed. She'd known she couldn't win before she opened her mouth. She'd made an offer to be polite. The 4 top 5 academies in the room hadn't said a word yet and were drinking tea. Radiant Star doubled Heavenly Marshal. Then Dongling's teacher put her cup down. Let's stop running an auction. Dongling Academy, 100 million a year, 3 A-grade Dragon Tamer class skill books, 1 A-grade experience resource, and we cover every piece of equipment he needs up to level 50. That killed the room, and it wasn't the money. It was the 3 A-grade Dragon Tamer skill books. Dragon Tamer is so rare that class-specific books effectively do not exist on the market. Dongling could only offer them because they'd recently acquired a level 50 dungeon called the Poison Dragon's Nest that drops them. St. River and Radiant Star exchanged a look and stopped bidding because they could not produce those books at any price. Li Wei, your decision? I opened my mouth. 200 million a year. A very pleasant voice from the side of the table. 1 S-grade Dragon Tamer class skill book. 1 S-grade universal skill book. 3 A-grade experience resources. She paused. And the Dragon Spirit's secret realm. The room made a noise I have not heard before or since. That was Shen Yu of Fengtian Academy. Delicate features, easy smile, and she had just given away an entire resource realm to sign one 18-year-old. Fengtian's Dragon Spirit realm grows dragon spirit grass. It's the food you feed a young dragon, and it's also a pharmaceutical base ingredient, and every beast tamer in the country with a low-grade dragon buys it at whatever price Fengtian sets. She just handed me the tap. And I want to be clear that at that exact moment, I was about to cave. And then, ding! School selection bonus quest. Choose Dongling, top-tier spirit weapon, spirit dragon battle armor. Choose St. River, 3 S-rank dragon tamer skill books. Choose Radiant Star, an SS rank talent. Choose Fengtian, 1 random dragon egg. My choice is Fengtian Academy. The room exhaled. A few teachers smiled the specific smile of people who have just lost and wanted on record that they were gracious. What none of them knew was that Shen Yu is not an admissions officer. She's the principal's niece and a vice dean of Fengtian Academy, and she'd sat in the room the day before while the principal viewed a classified video file and had come out of it unable to speak and had been told to go to Anning City personally and pay whatever it cost. The other principals had watched the same video and given the same order. Their admissions staff hadn't seen it and didn't have the authority to go that far. She'd walked into a room full of people bidding blind. Wonderful, welcome to Fengtian. She was practically vibrating. I'll come collect you in a week, pack. Then, without pausing, Ye Ling, any interest in Fengtian? 3 A-grade priest skill books and 3 B-grade experience resources. Somebody down the table said, out loud, does Fengtian Academy have any sense of proportion at all? Ye Ling said yes before the man had finished the sentence and looked at me sideways while she said it, and looked extremely pleased about something. I wasn't listening. I'd already opened the reward. 1 dark egg, sitting in my warehouse. No description of what was inside. No hints. Random rank. Which meant it could be an earth dragon, and I'd have traded 3 S-rank skill books for a large lizard. Then little Gio, who had woken up sometime in the last 10 minutes, put her head out of my collar to see what the noise was. 19 admissions officers, 1 education director, and every top student in Anning City all looked at a small red dragon at the same time. That's a dragon. I was going to push her back down. Then I decided not to. It was coming out anyway, and I'd stopped being something you could quietly make disappear. With little Gio next to me, anything under 3rd tier is a conversation, not a threat. So I let her sit there and stare them down with those round gold eyes, and she growled at them, and the sound was so small that the entire room laughed. I regret everything, said the Dongling teacher into her tea. Cute, they were all thinking. Not one of them had seen Strength Shakes the Heavenly Vault. I learned the next part months afterward, from the man himself when he was in a mood to talk about it. I'm including it because I like knowing what my competition was doing while I was arguing with a grocery delivery drone. 400 kilometers away, under a waterfall in the Changfeng Mountains, an 18-year-old was sitting in the water with a great many scars on him, when a level 28 demon-striped tiger came out of the trees at his back. He didn't move. The water lit up with lightning, the tiger fell out of the air unconscious, and a white dragon came up out of the pool and ate it. Four-winged wind thunder dragon. Wind and thunder both. Tens of meters long, 4 white wings, scales like cold metal. Little white, sit. It sat, then shrank to housecat size and went to perch beside him. Wang Chen, level 25, beast tamer. Eldest son and likely heir of the Bai family, and one of a handful of people alive contracted to a flying dragon. The dragon ladder goes earth, flying, sub, giant, holy. He was on rung 2, which put him in a club of maybe a dozen people worldwide. Fewer than 5 humans have ever contracted a sub-dragon. Above that, nobody. His family had paid 7 level 50 transfers to get him the wind and thunder essence to hatch it. He'd skipped the entrance exam entirely, didn't need it. A flying dragon buys you a special admission to any top 10 school in the country. He'd picked Feng Tian. His steward came down to the water with the departure schedule. Who was provincial top scorer? Wang Chen asked, drying his hair. Ye Wen? Ye Wen being his lifelong rival, a dark mage, the famous magical girl of Nanzhou province. No, young master, a person named Li Wei. Never heard of him. Class? Dragon tamer. Wang Chen stopped drying his hair. Say that again? Dragon tamer, young master. I spent the next 3 days spending money. 100 million dragon coins landed in my account. Half a year of Feng Tian scholarship paid up front. 18 years old. 9 figures. In a world where that's not even remarkable if you're strong enough, because strength is the thing money chases. I moved the orphanage into a new compound. Then I hired several level 20 transfers as permanent staff to give the kids proper pre-job change instruction, because I had just watched what happens to people who walk into that ceremony unprepared. Li Ma quit 2 of her 3 jobs. I'm still working on the 3rd. Then little Ju woke up, level 15, 3,000 strength, 3,000 intelligence, 3,000 physique, 3,000 agility, dead even across the board, which put me, through bloodline fusion, at level 22, at 850 across the top 2 and 800 flat on the rest. I don't think there was another person on the planet with that panel at my level. Then I took out the black egg. Gawoo! Little Ju went rigid on my knee. Every scale up, low growl in the throat, eyes locked on the egg like it was something that had come through a window. Easy, not an enemy. Ga? Then what is it? Probably your little brother or sister. I genuinely don't know. I'd tried the dragon taming art on it several times already and failed every time, with no hint and no note to work from. Little Ju processed the word sister, and her entire posture changed. She flew over and started orbiting the egg, poking it with a claw every few seconds. Then she grabbed it in both arms, hauled it back to my pillow, announced that she would be sleeping with it, and passed out, purring. Neither of us noticed the shell had already started coming apart. I woke up cold. Specifically, I woke up with 2 weights on my chest, one furnace hot and one like somebody had set a block of ice on my sternum. There were pale blue shell fragments all over the bed, and lying next to little Ju was a second dragon. Ice blue, clear as crystal, snowflake patterns worked into the wings, 2 horns like cut glass, and eyes the color of the sky over a frozen field. If little Ju is the loud girl from down the street, this one came out of the egg as a princess. The 2 of them woke up at the same time and stared at each other from about 10 centimeters. Eek! Then the blue one, having decided the red one was a problem, turned her head away from little Joe entirely, looked directly at me, and communicated, very clearly, right into my head. Servant. Why are you lying there? Come and deal with this. Servant. Also, how was I understanding it? Frost Holy Dragon, Lord of Winter, level 1. 300, 300, 270, 270, the exact numbers little Joe had on day 1. Ice immunity, S. Frost breath, S. Embrace of snow, A. Friendly targets get 80% more health and resistance and 200% more damage. And frost domain, S. Every enemy within 1 kilometer loses 70% of every attribute. 3S and 1A, identical in shape to little Jew's kit, except this one's built to buff my side and gut theirs. 70% of everything within a kilometer. I was still reading it when I heard a small, wet, distressed noise. Little Joe had cornered her, pinned her with both front paws, and was licking her face. Cats do it to show affection. Apparently dragons inherited the habit. The blue one was beating her wings and trying to escape, and could not, because level 15 versus level 1 is not a negotiation. and eventually she just started making a high, thin noise directly at me for help. "Little Jew, you're making your sister cry. Stop." I pried the eldest off and picked up the youngest, and she immediately arranged herself in my arms and lifted her chin and refused to look at her sister. "Since you're mine now, you need a name. Eek, meaning, yes, servant, make it a good one. Snow, cold, proud as a princess, clear as ice. Ching Han, I said, little Han," and her eyes lit up like somebody had struck a match behind glass. Fengtian Academy gave me Villa number 1 because that's what the number 1 freshman gets. It has 4 colleges: tactical, combat, magic, and enhancement. 50 dungeon instances on campus, more than any other top school in the country, and denied bed below silver because the students here don't need practice wheels. The opening ceremony had 1,000 freshmen in it, and every one of them turned around when Ye Ling called my name across the hall. "That's the Nanzhou top scorer? He's just pretty. He won as a dragon tamer." "That takes something." "What, you think he contracted a dragon? Be serious. One adult dragon fights 4 fourth-tier humans." I sat down somewhere with nobody near me and let them look. The vice principal came out of thin air onto the stage. Zhang Bo, 52, level 90, 4th-tier space mage, and every mage in that hall sat forward like he was a rock star, which to them, he is. He got 2 sentences into his speech before somebody knocked on the door. 3 people in the doorway, all filthy, all visibly having just been in a fight. "Reporting in," said the enormous one, at about 1'9", in a tone with no respect in it whatsoever. Wang Chen. And with him, Yang Tao, the sword fanatic, Dongling Province top scorer, hidden class spirit swordsman from a family with 3 4th-tier sword gods in it, and Shen Jia, Xianye Province top scorer, hidden class chaos mage, elf blood, gold hair to the waist, pointed ears, and 2 4th-tier archmages at home. "Why are you 3 late?" Shen Jia pointed at Wang Chen without hesitation. "I overslept, I was hurrying, and I ran into this lunatic. He heard my name and demanded a fight. I got annoyed and hit him." "And you?" Jiangbo asked Yang Tao. "Saw them fighting on the way in," said Yang Tao. "Got itchy." 3 of the highest scoring students in the country on day 1 before breakfast. "It's only because we're on campus that I held back," said Wang Chen. "If I'd summoned the dragon, neither of you would have lasted." "I wasn't at full strength either. I hadn't actually drawn my sword." Jiangbo aged visibly and told them to sit down. Then he explained the default rankings. Freshmen get ranked on entry based on exam results, provisional, to be replaced by the real thing after the big freshman exam in a month. Everyone opened the site on their phones, and 1,000 people made a noise at once. Because the deans had put me at number 1, above Wang Chen, above Yang Tao, above Shen Jia, above Feng Lei, the Fengtian province top scorer, who was sitting right next to Ye Ling. That's favoritism. How is a Nanzhou nobody above them? Jiang Bo looked out at a hall full of offended prodigies and smiled, because that was the entire point. Fengtian had landed 5 provincial top scorers in one intake. They wanted the golden year to start biting immediately. Of course, the deans hadn't just done it to start a fight. They'd all seen the video. In their books, I genuinely was number 1 because I had a blazing holy dragon. None of them knew I now had 2. Bang! Somebody hit an armrest and stood up. I reject this ranking. I challenged Li Wei, Song Fei, assassin, 7th in Fengtian province, initially ranked 12th here, S-rank talent, and a face that had been in the newspapers. He made a genuinely reasonable argument, too. Exam difficulty varies by province. Standards aren't comparable. Ranking Nanzhou's top scorer above every other province's is an insult to every other province. Half the hall nodded. Li Wei, said the vice principal, enjoying himself. Your view? No objection. I accept. Good. Song Fei sneered. I thought you'd fold. I'll try not to hit you so hard you can't keep your dignity. He had reason to be confident. Assassin is the single best one-on-one class in the game. Mobile, evasive, enormous single target burst, execute damage. Even Feng Lei and Yang Tao would take Song Fei seriously in a duel. Let's go. Arena 1. Wait. Oh? Scared? I want to bet. Name it. Our starting credits. The hall lost it. At Fengtian, everything is credits. Food, forging, enchanting, dungeon tickets, resource maps, trading with other students, all of it. Freshmen get $5,000 up front, which covers your first month of living expenses and every dungeon run you can afford in that month, which is to say, it covers your entire chance of doing well on the exam. I just opened by betting the month. Ye Ling's group came along to watch. Feng Lei, being gracious about it, asked her who'd win. Li Wei, she said instantly. Feng Lei's face changed. He and Ye Ling were childhood friends, and he had plans there. Why? Intuition. Jiang Bo himself refereed. 3-second countdown. Song Fei was fast. Genuinely fast. Half the freshmen in that arena couldn't track him with the naked eye. A purple-gold dagger appeared in his hand, and he crossed 10 meters in a breath and came out directly behind me. Shadow Strike into backstab. The classic opener. 120% bonus crit if it lands from behind, and it lands from behind basically always. It went through empty air. He'd already committed. The skill has an end lag, and he was standing in it. And while he was standing in it, something extremely cold went up his spine, because assassins get danger intuition, and his was screaming. He tried to break the animation and blink out. He was one step slow. I hit him once, in the back, with my fist. He went into the arena railing hard enough to bend it, brought up blood, and passed out on the floor. 1,000 freshmen made one sound. Feng Lei, Wang Chen, and Shen Jia all sat up straight at the same moment, which was the first thing that had happened all morning that they took seriously. He didn't summon anything. He didn't even use a skill. That was just a punch. Song Fei was wearing armor. Winner, Li Wei. Song Fei's 5,000 credits transfer now. I left without looking at him. Afterward, Ye Ling came over with her group in tow. Feng Lei, Fengtian province top scorer, hidden class berserker, extremely gracious, pleasure to meet you. And 2 girls, Feng Mei, his cousin, ranked 98th, and Xie Lin, ranked 100th, both of whom had made it into Feng Tian by exactly 1 place. So this is the dragon tamer sister Ye Ling keeps talking about, said Xie Lin. Feng Mei, cousin of the Feng Tian province top scorer, which she said in a way that put the emphasis exactly where she wanted it. Hello, I said, and nothing else, because I'd already worked out what these people were. Li Wei, you'll be running dungeons this month, right? Ye Ling's eyes were bright. Then let's make a 5-person team. With you and Feng Lei both, we could clear anything. Feng Lei's eyebrows moved about a millimeter, and Xie Lin picked it up like they had rehearsed it. Sister Xiaoling, I'm afraid that won't work. Our 5th slot's already promised to someone. She turned to me and did the apology face. Sorry, Li Wei, we're really full. It's fine. Team or solo, doesn't matter to me. That part was true. Ye Ling looked at me like she wanted to say something. I said goodbye and left, and I'd like to record what I was actually thinking, which was not hurt feelings. It was, right, different worlds. She's a daughter of a house. Everyone she's ever met is a child of another house. I'm a guy from an orphanage who happens to be very good at killing things. I never wanted anything from her. I gave her a ride through a dungeon because she had a decent personality and wasn't a snob, and that was the whole of it. But college is where circles harden. I don't push my way into other people's, ever. Behind me, Feng Mei and Xie Lin were already exchanging a look. A nobody with a lucky roll wants into their set. Dream on. And if Feng Lei didn't want Ye Ling wouldn't be in it either. Ye Ling stood there watching me walk off with a strange expression, feeling like she'd just lost something and unable to work out what. Back at Villa 1, 2 dragons came out of the pet space and demanded dinner. Little Joe with the headbutting and the whining. Master, I'm starving. Little Han lifting her chin. Servant. Food. Now. I gave you dozens of eggs this morning, and it isn't even noon. You 2 are a problem. Then I opened the campus app and looked at the cafeteria. Premium black-haired pork tenderloin, 30 credits a gin. Premium magic sea cucumber, 40 a gin. Premium unicorn rabbit leg, 20 a gin. Now, for a normal student that's nothing, because a normal student orders a finished dish for 10 credits and eats it. I don't have a student. I have livestock with opinions. Little Joe alone had been putting away about 100 gin of meat a day back in Anning. With little Han added, I needed 200 a day minimum. And a top academy's kitchen doesn't stock ordinary meat. I couldn't buy cheap even if I wanted to. 200 gin at 30 credits. 6,000 credits a day. Freshmen get 5,000 for the month. I ordered 200 gin of premium meat, and it came to 6,500, and a drone flew it up the mountain in 3 minutes, and I stood in my enormous new kitchen and cooked all of it, because my dragon has become so fussy that she now refuses food I didn't make. 2 hours later, 2 extremely round dragons were asleep on me with their bellies out. I opened my balance. 3,500 credits. Thank God for Song Fei, I said out loud in an empty villa. Next morning, 8 a.m., Secret Realm Hall. I walked in and the room turned around, because at this point I was famous twice, provincial top scorer as a dragon tamer, and then one-punching the 7th-ranked assassin in Fengtian province. I went to the desk and registered. Demon Tiger Forest. Giant Demon Grotto. Ice Serpent's Nest. All 3. All platinum grade, levels 20 to 25. 1,000 credits a ticket. Difficulty not selectable. Hell. The sophomore working the desk covered her mouth. Junior, alone? These are platinum. Please, go find a party first. The whole hall heard her. He's soloing platinum? He got turned down for a team yesterday, and now he's sulking into a dungeon. That's so childish. 3 minutes. I give him 3 minutes before we get the announcement. He's a provincial champion. 5. My mind's made up, I said. Please, stamp it. She stamped it, and told me to use my scroll the second anything went wrong, and I liked her for that. I just pushed the platinum door open when a lot of footsteps came in behind me. Feng Lei's team with Song Fei in my old slot, Wang Chen's team, Shen Jia and Yang Tao's team. All of them properly built. Front line, damage, priest. All of them picked Demon Tiger Forest. Even Wang Chen teamed. He had a flying dragon, and he still brought a warrior and a priest, because a beast tamer with a dragon is still a paper-thin human standing behind it. And if your dragon is busy at the front while somebody flanks you, you're finished. See, Sister Xiaoling, said Xielin brightly. It was the right call. He's a reckless brute. Yeling looked at the door I'd gone through and didn't answer. She'd spent the night working out what she'd lost. She'd landed on it too. She'd chosen Feng Lei over me, and she'd done it by staying quiet, which is the way most people choose. Demon Tiger Forest. Platinum. Level 20 to 25. Hell, non-optional. Field debuff on entry, demonic invasion, all attributes down 30%, pets included. 10 two-winged demon tigers came out of the trees, level 22, platinum 1 star. Platinum star means their stats beat the elite monsters in my entrance exam. These were the warm-up before the appetizer. Both dragons let themselves out without being asked, and the 10 tigers immediately stopped, dropped their heads, and started backing up. Little Joe, hold! She was already winding up. Your sister takes all 3 of these dungeons. She needs the practice. Ga woo, but she's level 1. What if the idiots hurt her? I wanted on record that a blazing holy dragon was worried about her sister's safety against monsters that could not scratch either of them. Little Han ignored her entirely, opened her wings and blinked across the clearing. The world changed color. Wind, then snow. Then she flicked her tail, and the cold in the air turned into edges, and 10 platinum star demon tigers came apart and were frozen solid before the pieces landed. Level 1. 300 strength. Frost domain. Every enemy within 1 kilometer loses 70% of every attribute. That's why. She didn't outstat them. She took 70% off them and then hit what was left. Eek, servant. Pet me. You were perfect. She squinted like a cat. Little Jew shoved in immediately demanding equal treatment, and I stood in a corrupted forest patting 2 holy dragons on the head with monsters frozen solid 10 meters away. Then I straightened up because I had a budget problem. New planned, both of you. Nothing in this forest leaves, not one. I want the clear record, and I want every single point of experience in here. I'll kill the ants too, I added to nobody. Look, I'd love to say that was strategy. 10,000 credits doesn't cover 2 meals for these two. I did all 3 in a row without leaving. Demon Tiger Forest, 2 minutes, 32. Then I used the internal transfer scroll straight into Giant Demon Grotto, because I could not face walking back out through that lobby, and both dragons went to 60 meters in an underground cavern and cleared 4 floors of trolls. The Troll King watched 5,000 of his own legion get erased and had a genuine moment of theological crisis about why a level 32 platinum boss had attracted 2 holy dragons. 3 minutes, 15. Ice Serpent's Nest, 2 minutes, 42. Then I went back out into the hall, which had been waiting about 21 minutes and had built an entire narrative while I was gone, because in the meantime, 3 teams had come out. Feng Lei's, with Xielin unconscious in his arms, then Shen Jia and Yang Tao's with their priest unconscious, then Wang Chen's with his priest unconscious. The Demon Tiger boss has a skill called Memory Poison.
It rewrites your memories and leaves you poisoned, and a first-tier priest cannot dispel it. You need a level 40 second-tier priest, which no freshman has. It also targets squishies exclusively, which means the thing is smart. All 3 elite teams got hit. All 3 had to evacuate, and then I walked out 21 minutes after going in. Finally, 21 minutes in one dungeon, and the deans ranked him first. If you're so tough, why don't you stay in there? Li Wei, are you all right? Yeling came over worried. I looked at her, said nothing, and walked past her to the desk, because when a room full of people was calling me a fraud, she had looked at Feng Lei's face and made a decision, and the decision was silence. Sister Yeling, why do you care about somebody that rude? Said Feng Mei, who had just failed. 20 minutes for one demon tiger forest. What future does trash like that have? And the whole hall joined in, because people are like this, and because the fastest way to feel good is to find somebody to be above. I didn't argue. I just looked around the room slowly and made a point of learning faces. Then the sophomore came out of the control room with a very strange expression, walked to her desk, and got cut off by Song Fei. Senior, did you get it? What was our top freshman's time in Demon Tiger Forest? Do share. The whole hall backed him up. Yes, senior, tell us. We'd all love to know what a provincial champion can do. The sophomore looked at 40 freshmen enjoying themselves and got visibly angry. You want his results? Fine, I'll put them up. I only hope none of you are embarrassed. She pulled my records out of the academy database and threw them onto the hall's holographic display. Best record, Demon Tiger Forest, Li Wei, 2 minutes 32. Overall, SSS. Best record, Giant Demon Grotto, Li Wei, 3 minutes 15. Overall, SSS. Best record, Ice Serpent's Nest, Li Wei, 2 minutes 42. Overall, SSS. You could hear the air conditioning. Because the previous solo record for Demon Tiger Forest was 7 minutes 42, and the previous team record, 5 people, coordinated, was 4 minutes 31. I done it alone in 2:32, and SSS overall, which you cannot get without clearing every single monster on the map. Both prior records were rated S. Feng Lei's face went gray. So did Wang Chen's. So did Shen Jia's. And then, because people will not simply accept a thing, Senior, Song Fei again. Are you certain there's no error? He was in there 20 minutes. Maybe the database glitched. Each record beat the old one by 5 minutes. 5. That isn't human. Somebody tampered with the central data. And the 3 prodigies, who had genuinely believed it for about 4 seconds, quietly let the crowd carry the argument for them, because a genius can't be seen to be a sore loser, but a genius can absolutely let other people be sore on his behalf. Only one person in that room knew for a fact the numbers were real. She looked sideways at Feng Lei's frozen face and stayed quiet again. I turned to leave, and Song Fei stepped into my path. What, your fake numbers got exposed, and now your 2 heads came out of my collar at once. 1 crimson, 1 ice blue, faster than anyone in the room could track. A jet of divine fire and a jet of frost breath went into Song Fei's face at point-blank range from inside my shirt. He hit the floor screaming, and then stopped screaming. Nobody moved. Including me, because I had absolutely not ordered that. I want to be fair to them. They'd been lying in my collar the entire time listening to a room full of people insult me. I'd told them not to act on their own, so they'd held it in. And then this specific individual walked up and physically blocked my path. That was as much restraint as they had left, and I mean it, that was restrained. At full effort, they'd have removed his head and he'd have needed a 3rd-tier resurrection. Every freshman in that room took a step backward, because they'd also just felt the magic in that. Fire and ice, instant, no incantation, out of a dragon tamer. Feng Lei, Wang Chen, and Shen Jia didn't flinch, but their faces changed, and all 3 of them arrived at the same thought at the same time, which was, we have got this person badly wrong. Nobody blocked the door on the way out. I got about 6 steps into the corridor before something started giggling in my shirt. I pulled the collar open. 2 dragons hanging off my shirt by their front claws, laughing. Ga? Eek? Innocent, both of them, heads tilted. Never mind. New rule, you don't hurt anybody without my say-so. Understood? Ga woo! Eek! 2 long wounded noises and 4 drooping ears. They genuinely did not understand. They'd defended me. In their heads, I am a being of the same rank as them, and those humans were mouthing off at me, which puts them in roughly the same category as dungeon trash, the only distinction being which ones you're allowed to kill.
And there's a real reason for the rule, which is that this world has laws. Most people never get a combat class. Most people are ordinary and can be deleted by a transfer with a gesture. So there's an international court of arbitration for job changers, and there are penalties, and my dragons need to understand the difference between a person and a monster before somebody makes me explain it in a courtroom. I'm not angry. I just want you to check with me first. They cheered up when I agreed that Song Fei had genuinely deserved it, and cheered up considerably more when I promised another 200 jin of premium meat that evening. The take from 3 platinum clears was obscene, 970,000 experience total, level 22 to 28, Little Jew 15 to 19, Little Han 1 to 11. Plus 2 A+ skills and an S- talent. King of Conquerors, S-, 15% lifesteal, and it applies to my contracted pets and allies too. Fast casting, S-. Every spell I own becomes instant. No incantation, ever. Roar of the Ice Dragon, A+. Frost Roar, 80% chance to freeze for 8 seconds. Everything else, armor, jewelry, materials, I sold. All of it. I did not keep a single item because the system's gear beats dungeon drops anyway, and because I had a much more pressing problem, namely that 10,000 credits doesn't cover 2 meals. New panel, 1400, 1400, 1300, 1300. An ordinary level 28 transferer peaks around 600 in his best stat. Little Jew, 4200 across the board. Little Han, 1900. The pawn shop was where I made my one genuine mistake of that week. It's an outside company, century old, buys anything. The clerk was a sophomore in a Cheongsam named Lin Yue, level 47, second-tier Dharma King, working a retail job for credits, which tells you everything about how this academy works. Seniority buys nothing here. Credits buy everything, and everyone is short. I'd just put my storage ring on the counter when the door banged open. Everyone wait outside. Don't crowd Senior Lin Yue. Yellow-dyed hair, entourage, swagger, and I felt the shape of it arrive, because I read a truly unreasonable number of web novels in my previous life, and I know this scene. Beautiful clerk, yellow-haired young master, pawn shop, protagonist with a cheat system. I only wanted to sell some loot so I could buy meat for my children. The yellow-haired one saw me sitting next to her, and I watched his face do the arithmetic, height, bearing, face, and lose. You dare put a hand on the woman I've claimed, I hit him, once, in the face, before he finished the sentence. He went down without making a sound. Then I turned around to Lin Yue, who was staring, and said, "Senior, this is all your fault." Lin Yue. His people came in, took one look at their unconscious master, correctly concluded that I was not a fight worth having, shouted that I'd just struck the second young master of the Ma family of Feng Tian and would be crippled for it, and left carrying him. Which is when I realized I'd gotten carried away. I could have simply walked out. I had absolutely no reason to hit him. I just wanted, once in my life, to do the thing the protagonist does. "Junior," said Lin Yue quietly, "you are in a great deal of trouble. Senior, you're in a great deal of trouble." What? If his family comes asking, I'll say you hired me to do it. Then you can't stay out of it either. She stared at me with her mouth open, and I could see her thinking that she'd never met anybody this shameless. "Sigh," I said. "I only came here to sell things. How did this happen?" "It happened," she said flatly, "because you punched a man in the face without saying a word." Fair. The blonde was Ma Tian, second son of the Ma family of Feng Tian, an ancient martial house with 2 level 100 4th-tier martial gods at the head of it, prestigious nationally, not just provincially. "Fortunately," she said, "the Ma family's reach does not extend into Feng Tian Academy, and that is exactly why I chose one of the top 5. These schools aren't private. Their students are the country's strategic reserve. Everyone here goes to the front line as a senior, straight into an elite legion. Half the officers on that front line graduated from this campus. No martial family in the country is stupid enough to reach into it, which means that inside this fence, an orphan with ability gets treated exactly like a duke's son. That's the whole reason I'm here. If I'd gone to some second-rate academy and punched that man, I'd be dead, dragon or no dragon, because 2 4th-tier old monsters would have come for me, and I am not there yet. Shouldn't it read, I said, that a senior was being harassed by a hooligan and a junior stepped in? That's not assault. That's chivalry. Lin Yue had no response to that at all. Then I emptied the ring onto her counter. Level 25 purple jewelry, level 25 purple weapons, a purple armor set, A-grade enchanting material, Oz Serpent King's core, A-grade forging material, Troll King's fingerbone. A B-grade mage skill book, a C-grade warrior book. She sat up. Then the manager came down from the second floor in a hurry because she'd felt it through the ceiling. 60,000 credits. 35 of that was the B-grade mage book alone, because mages are the single largest class population in this world, and B-grade books effectively do not drop. I tipped Lin Yue 1,000 credits on the way out, purely so she'd remember the chivalry version when the school asked. Then I bought 200 jin of meat and went home. Over the next 2 days, I stayed in and drilled, because a dragon tamer who leans entirely on his dragons is a dragon tamer with a very short career. The school started delivering on its promises, too. First, an S-rank dragon tamer book, Life Chain. 80% of all damage I take is redistributed to my dragon pets, split evenly among them. An attack that kills me is a tickle to a holy dragon. That skill is, functionally, immortality with a subscription fee. The rest, 3 S-grade universal books, 3 A-grade experience resources, were stuck in national procurement, and Shenyu called personally to apologize. 3 months ago, there was a battle at the Rift, enormous casualties, and also a lot of new heroes, and the state paid them first and emptied the treasury doing it, which is exactly correct. Those are seniors from this campus standing in front of a hole in the world so that the lights stay on behind them. They can have my skill book. I can wait. Also, said Shenyu, have you looked at the school forum? I had not. I'd been eating, sleeping, and training. You should, it's quite lively. The front page was a wall. This is the top freshman your deans picked? Faked his realm records and too scared to come out. Forget the special admit. Shenjia, Yang Tao, Feng Lei, 3 provincial champions. In what way are they below him? He's living in Villa 1 on the mountaintop looking down at us. It makes me ill. I'm 3rd in Yunnan, and they ranked me 57th. Move the freshman exam up. +1. I read it and understood exactly what it was. I wasn't the cause. I was the trigger. Every single person in this intake had been the best in their city for 18 years, and every single one of them had just been handed a number that said otherwise. And they all needed a fight. And then, near the bottom, a post that made me laugh out loud. 100 million dragon coins to whoever beats up Qin Fan. Poster ID, Handsome Breeze. I was still scrolling when a small mouthful of teeth appeared over the top of my laptop and bit through the screen. Little Jew? Gawu? Absolute innocence. Then a bang from the kitchen where little Han was sitting in front of the refrigerator, which was now venting black smoke because a frost holy dragon had gotten curious about it. In 2 days, those two destroyed 3 holographic projectors, 2 computers, and a refrigerator. All of it billed to my credits. Every single time I would start to tell them off, and they would look at me with those enormous eyes, and I would fold. Meanwhile, at the top of Fengchen Tower, 4 deans and a vice principal were sitting around a table with the forum on the screen. They seem unhappy with our rankings, said Zhang Bo, pouring tea. If it weren't classified, said Shenyu, curling her lip, I would release his realm footage tomorrow. Do these children believe Fengchen Academy fakes clear times? At a second-rate school, maybe. Here? They want the freshman exam moved up, said Guo Jian, Dean of Combat Academy. They want to prove themselves. And the deans, being educators, thought about it for a while. Then they gave the children exactly what they had asked for. Round 1 was a diamond realm. Imperial Underground Laboratory, level 20 to 35, Hell, 1 to 5 participants. Nobody had ever soloed it. The forum's official advice was, wait until level 35, do your second job advancement, bring 4 other top 100 students. Wang Chen went in alone. So did I. Everybody else teamed. He's asking for it. Wang Chen has a flying dragon. What does Li Wei have? I got the rest of this from Shen Yu afterward, over about 40 minutes, because she could not stop laughing while she told it. Up on the platform, 4 deans, 4 vice deans, and dozens of instructors settled in to watch. Not humans, all of them. The warrior instructor was a blue orc with tusks. Archery was a silver moon elf. The assassin instructor, a catwoman. The priest instructor, a lizard woman. Games merged with reality a century ago, and everybody's empires came with them, and when the rift started eating the world, they all stopped arguing about it. They put Wang Chen on screen first. 4-winged wind thunder dragon. full size, one breath of wind and lightning, and level 28 mutants stopped existing. He'll be one of the strongest beast tamers alive. If that flying dragon breaks through to sub-dragon at maturity, he's made. Speaking of dragons, put the actual dragon tamer up. Let's see if he really has one. The director switched to my feed. White. Just white. Total whiteout, edge to edge, a blizzard filling a basement corridor. Camera 2. White. 3. White. 4. 5. 6. Dean Guojian slammed the table. Zhou Cheng, are you sure that's the right realm? Dean, I swear that's Li Wei's feed. I could have told them what they were looking at, if anybody had asked me. Frost domain in a narrow corridor is not a visual effect. It's a weather system. I'd walked into that entrance with little Han on my shoulder, and by the time I'd finished stepping through the doorway, the 500 novice aliens meant to be my warm-up were standing there as ice, and little Joe's tail took care of the rest of it while I kept walking. I did not slow down. I did not look at a single camera. I had a clear time to beat, and I was in a hurry. Never mind. Move to his level 2, we'll catch him there. Level 2 had 8,000 monsters in it. Level 33, Diamond 3-star, mechanical minotaurs, bio-cat demons, aliens still floating in their tanks. I had spent about 9 seconds in that room. They got a much clearer picture of it at least. An empty room, every tank shattered, everything inside burned down to ash, a faint sizzling coming through the speakers. Zhou Cheng, other angles, and Zhou Cheng's voice came back sounding like a man about to cry. Dean, the other cameras are gone. They're burned. Those nano cameras are magically hardened. Before installation, a dozen level 45 second-tier Dharma Kings take turns bombarding them to confirm they survive. A level 29 freshman had melted them. Uncle Cheng, said Shen Yu, who had worked something out. Level 6, now! Level 6 is the boss floor. Mechanical Minotaur King and terrifying Alien Queen, plus 50,000 level 37 elites and tanks around the walls, summoned automatically when either boss drops below half health. Both bosses go invincible for 1 second every 10%. Both dodge interrupts while casting. Both fully heal at 10%. The screen came up on level 6, and there I was, standing in front of an open diamond chest with the Minotaur King and the Alien Queen lying behind me. Ding! Imperial Underground Laboratory. Hell. Time. 2 minutes 7 seconds. Performance. SSS. Duration. SSS. Overall. SSS. The platform went completely silent, and then every single one of them regretted the 90 seconds they'd spent watching somebody else. Zhang Bo took a long pull on his cigar, exhaled, and said, into the smoke, "That boy is coming to Magic Academy," and 4 deans and 30 instructors, who had been perfectly polite to each other for years, went off like a box of fireworks. Ridiculous! He's combat academies. He's tactical. Your college is theory. You'd waste him. Enhancement. Get out. Meanwhile, I was standing in a room full of burned alien corpses, trying to breathe, because both my dragons had smelled the place and retreated into the pet space, leaving me alone to collect the loot. The rewards were absurd. 1 million experience, 1,000 skill points, 600 attribute points, a title, 2 level 30 gold weapons, an A-grade priest book, an A-grade enchant material, an S-grade forging material. And then, because I was the first person ever to solo it, 2 more. Heavenly Dragon Travel, S-rank Dragon Tamer skill. Your dragon pet's wings grow from your own back, you fly, and you inherit the corresponding skills. Staffless Casting, S-rank talent. You can cast without holding a weapon, which, stacked on fast casting, means every spell I own is now instant, silent, and needs nothing in my hands. I crushed the scroll and came out, and found myself facing dozens of deans and instructors standing in a semicircle, staring at me the way wolves stare at something small. I took a step back before I could stop myself. The other students came out over the next few minutes. Torn clothes, injuries, swearing. Is that mechanic designed by a human being? 50,000 ads at half health. 1 second cast, and they dodge the interrupt. School, have some conscience. Every single one of those teams was top 400. The lower ranked ones hadn't even reached the elites yet. Then somebody spotted me standing with the faculty. Li Wei's out already? That was fast. Out my ass. Look, the deans have him surrounded. He's getting chewed out for washing out. So much for their #1 freshman. Ha! They wanted this dungeon to shut us up, and it backfired. And the mood in that arena went from misery to delight, because there is nothing like watching somebody above you fall. Then Wang Chen came out first among the prodigies, with a small white dragon on his shoulder and a grin on his face, and got mobbed by his people. Then Feng Lei's team, then Shen Jia's, then Yang Tao's. Feng Lei's team had cleared it, but barely, and they were furious about it, because at the boss, Feng Lei had broken position to save Ye Ling and missed the interrupt on the Minotaur King. Song Fei got the Alien Queen's cast, which is the only reason they lived, and they still ate 20,000 ads. Feng Lei had to burn blood sacrifice, 300% to all attributes for 120 seconds, followed by 5 minutes as a normal human being, and killed the boss with 10 seconds left on it. So they'd made it. And they had all decided whose fault the delay was. Feng Mei and Xie Lin were already whispering. Song Fei joined in. And Feng Lei looked at Ye Ling with something new in his face, which was disdain. The truth is that the earlier floors went so easily that all 4 of them stopped covering their own priest and just chased damage numbers, because in a party the loot splits by damage percentage and support gets a flat rate. So they left her uncovered and she got hit, and now it was her fault. She stood there and took it and couldn't say a word. And she found herself thinking about somebody who used to stand in front of her. Then Wang Chen walked up to the faculty with his chin out. "Deans, shouldn't the first round results be posted?" And then turning, "Shame, Li Wei. I didn't think you'd wash out that fast. Push a little harder next time and you might have taken the crown off me." His people started laughing. Then they stopped laughing because they'd noticed how the faculty were looking at Wang Chen, and it was a look every single one of them recognized from high school. It's the look you give an idiot. Are all young people this pleased with themselves these days? Jiang Bo waved a sleeve. "Fine, you wanted rankings." The screen changed. Li Wei, solo. 2 minutes, 7 seconds. Overall, SSS. First, Wang Chen, solo. 8 minutes 52. Overall, SS. Second, Feng Lei, team. 9 minutes 3. Overall, S. Third, Wang Chen's face stopped working. 6 minutes 55. He'd walked over here to gloat with a 6-minute deficit in his pocket. Impossible. That's fabricated. Even if he cleared 5 floors in a minute, nobody does that boss in 1. The school's rigging it. Is he somebody's illegitimate son? Song Fei's voice came out of the crowd, loud and clear. "I also suspect there's something fishy here." And a yellow-haired freshman stood up beside him and agreed at the top of his lungs. "Because Ma Tian had reported me to the school for assault, and the school had interviewed a certain sophomore in a Cheongsam, and Ma Tian had come out of that meeting officially recorded as a harasser, while I came out officially recorded as a hero. And Song Fei had reported me for the fire and ice thing, and been told that he had blocked my path first. 2 young men from prestigious houses, both publicly outdone by a charity case from Anning City, both with nowhere to put it. The room caught fire. I don't accept it. +1. Is a top 5 university really doing this in the open? 5 minutes I'd have believed. 2? And the faculty, faced with 400 furious teenagers accusing them of fraud, exchanged glances and smiled. Because these 5 universities do not exist to make you comfortable. Their written policy on student conflict is, settle it in the arena. There's a famous story here about a freshman who got his kill stolen by a sophomore and went crying to a teacher. And the teacher said, "Easy, go to the arena and beat him up." And the freshman said, "But I can't beat him." And the teacher stopped smiling and said, "Then you already know the answer. Get out." Still not satisfied? Guo Jian stepped forward. "Good. I was afraid his numbers would frighten you into silence. Everyone, on to the arenas, now." Round 2 of the freshman examination is free challenge. Lower ranks may challenge higher ranks. Higher ranks may not refuse. If the lower rank wins, they take the loser's position. 400 people made one noise, and every hostile eye in that arena turned to the one person standing next to the deans with an unchanged expression. I, Ma Tian, challenge the number 1 freshman. I, Song Fei, challenge the number 1 freshman. Qin Bo, same. Wen Jia, Lu Shan. 5 seconds. 8 names, all of them top 100. He's angered the whole year. He's finished. He is so finished. Ye Ling opened her mouth, and Feng Mei and Xie Lin stepped past her onto the floor. "Good, I'm in a bad mood anyway," said Xie Lin. "I'll take it out on him." Even the deans had never seen a freshman exam turn into this. Up on the arena, Ma Tian and Song Fei immediately started arguing about who got to go first. and everyone below settled in to enjoy watching the number one freshman get taken apart in installments, which has to be the least intimidating first place in the history of this school. Normally, people are afraid to challenge the top. This one had a cue. "Li Wei," said Guo Jin, "you may take the stage." And walking up those steps, for the first time in a month, I let my face do what it wanted. "Stop arguing," I said. "All of you, every challenger, come at once. I'm in a hurry." Then I turned and pointed, very deliberately, at Wang Chen, Feng Lei, Shen Jia, and Yang Tao. "And you four, stop standing there looking important. Get up here. If I don't beat every one of you into the floor today, consider it a gift." The arena detonated. Feng Lei's expression went completely flat. "Song Fei, Yuan Yuan, Xiao Tao," his voice didn't change at all. "He wants a beating. Give him one. All together. It'll do us good." Qinbo and Wen Jia looked at Wang Chen, who said, "Go, don't hold back." Shen Jia and Yang Tao sent theirs up too. None of the four prodigies came themselves. They sent staff. 7 top 100 students on the arena floor. Song Fei, assassin. Wen Jia, priest. Lu Shan, warrior. Han Xuan, priest. Xielin, mage. Feng Mei, swordsman. Qinbo, warrior. Every one of them level 30 or above. Ma Tian, to my genuine surprise, jumped off the stage. "You have no martial ethics," he announced. "I do. I'll beat him up after he's recovered." "An ancient martial family. Sure, I'll take it." The referee looked at the deans. The deans nodded without hesitating, because they weren't worried in the slightest. They'd all seen what was in my collar. The energy shield came up. And 7 people looked at me the way you look at something already finished, and didn't even bother with a threat. 7 of them, and it went about as long as you'd expect. I did not summon anything. I didn't need to. That fight was assassins and priests and warriors at level 30, and I was carrying 20% of 2 holy dragons in my blood, plus a title that gives me 1,200 flat points, and I had fast casting and staffless casting, and a talent that regenerates 5% of me every second. Then I beat Yang Tao, who came up on his own, which is more than the other 3 did. By the time they carried Song Fei and Xielin and Feng Mei off to the priests, the Nanzhou freshmen in the crowd had found their voices. "Bark! Keep barking! 7 on 1 and you still lost. Do you people know how this game works?" Ye Ling stood off to the side of that and smiled at nothing and thought, "I chose wrong, and there's no way back." Then it was the 4 of them, in a Mystic Realm battlefield, a flat plain with a horizon, broadcast to the whole arena on a holographic screen. Wang Chen waved Feng Lei and Shen Jia off to the sidelines like staff. "Go watch. I'll teach him there's always somebody above you." Feng Lei's face went stiff, and he went because a white dragon growled at him. "Does having a dragon make you a god?" he said bitterly from the sideline. Shen Jia didn't say anything. She'd already worked it out. I'd beaten Yang Tao and she couldn't, so she was under me and she knew it. She'd insisted on standing on that field purely because folding before the fight is worse than losing it. Wang Chen summoned 50 meters of 4-winged wind thunder dragon in thunderstorm form, lightning rolling off it, 4 white wings out. The arena outside made a sound. How does Li Wei fight that? Wait, why isn't he scared? Because through the camera, everybody could see the expression on my face, and it hadn't changed. The deans were leaning forward. Dragon, or holy dragon. And then I unclipped my armor and shook it, and 2 round objects fell out of my shirt onto the ground. The staff swung a nano camera straight down on them, and 400 freshmen and 30 instructors got their first clear look at Little Joe and Little Han in cub form. Understand the visual. Wang Chen's dragon, even shrunk, looks like a weapon. White plate scales, armored head, 1 eye showing, wings that make the air feel wrong. And what fell out of my shirt was 2 round things with 4 fat paws each, and eyes like set rubies and sapphires, who immediately noticed they were on the floor, panicked, and climbed back up my trouser leg like kittens. "Go-oo! Eek!" Every girl in that arena made a noise. Several men who dislike animals made the same noise, and every single person there, including Wang Chen, arrived at the identical wrong conclusion. Because a dragon tamer can only contract giant dragons and holy dragons, and those things are supposed to regard humans as insects, something that clingy cannot be a holy dragon. Therefore, Li Wei must have broken the class restrictions somehow and contracted 2 low-tier dragons. Flying dragons, probably. Definitely not earth dragons. Earth dragons don't have wings. I had also told both of them to keep their pressure suppressed, which helped. Wang Chen, who had genuinely almost swallowed his tongue when I took my armor off, checked his own dragon, saw it wasn't afraid, and relaxed completely. I'll admit it, Li Wei.
Breaking the restriction and contracting too. That's impressive. He was smiling again.
But if you think that beats me, you're a child. I looked down into my collar. Little Ju, little Han, he says you two are flying dragons. Both heads came up. They dropped off me and walked on 4 short legs, no flying, across open ground toward 50 meters of storm dragon. What are they doing? They're going to get stepped on. Wang Chen started laughing because he thought this was a bit. He thought I was sending them over to be adorable at him because I'd lost. The 4-winged wind thunder dragon watched 2 small round things approach and raised a claw to end them. Then the light came. Crimson and ice blue twisting together and 2 shapes growing inside it, and it took 3 seconds. The staff hadn't repositioned the camera, so for a moment the entire arena could only see the lower halves of 2 dragon bodies filling the screen, 100 meters each. They finally got the angle up, and everyone saw them properly. Little Ju, entirely crimson, wearing divine fire-like clothing, wings out wide enough to take the sky away. Little Han beside her, smaller, more elegant, snow blue scale-like cut crystal, cold coming off her in sheets. A dragon princess in the only sense of that phrase that has ever been literal. There are records of holy dragons in this world. Nobody alive has seen one, but the descriptions exist in old books, and everybody in that arena had read them at some point as a child. Blazing holy dragon, frost holy dragon. The deans knew I had one. Nobody knew there were 2. Inside the realm, Wang Chen stopped functioning. His dragon had gone completely rigid, 50 meters of proud flying dragons standing in front of 200-meter holy dragons, and physically fighting the instinct to lie down and worship. Feng Lei and Shen Jia looked at each other and discovered they were both shaking. That's the moment those two learned what it feels like to be small. Not outranked, small. And they finally understood why I'd spent a month locked in a villa. They'd assumed I was hiding from the forum. I was keeping my daughters away from 400 children. Then little Joe raised one claw and slapped the flying dragon on the head. 50 meters of 4-winged wind thunder dragon went 2,000 meters backward and plowed a furrow across the entire plane, and then didn't get up. One slap. It was unconscious. Little Joe looked at where it had landed and made a noise that I am confident translates as, "This is the flying dragon?" Here's why. Wang Chen's dragon was level 24, 5 above little Joe, 13 above little Han, with 4-dimensional stats just over 1,000. Little Joe was over 4 times that. Little Han, at level 11, was several hundred ahead of it, and that was a casual swat in Strength Shake's the Heavenly Vault form, which would have crippled a level 50 human. Wang Chen sat down on the ground and stayed there. The dragons shrank, flapped back over to me like 2 balloons, and climbed into my arms. "Do you two want to continue?" I asked Feng Lei and Shen Jia. "I'm free." Feng Lei, top scorer of the richest province in the country, swallowed and said, "No, I concede." Shen Jia put her staff down very carefully so as not to look threatening to anything in my collar. Outside, 400 people were losing their minds. He contracted 2 holy dragons. Where are the geniuses who explained to us that it was impossible? Come out, bring your knife. Then he's the first dragon tamer in history with a dragon pet. He's going to be one of the strongest people alive. "Enough noise," Guojian shouted. 10 minutes left, get on with it. And then the second best thing of the day happened, which is that the Nanzhou province freshmen went hunting. Lin Tong, Nanzhou, rank 25, challenging Song Fei at 7. "Get up here, I've been watching you." Su Hao, 32, challenging Xie Lin at 18. "You were mouthing off about Brother Wei, weren't you?" "Ye Ling, get up here. He carried you through the entrance exam and you're standing with these people?" Su Qian, 16, challenging you at 12. "Ma Tian, you had the decency to step off, so you're clear. Qin Bo, don't hide behind him. Up." 10 seconds. Every single person who'd mocked me in that hall had a cue. Because the rule is simple. Lower can challenge higher, higher cannot refuse, and if you win, you take their spot. It's the cleanest system I've ever seen, and the freshmen were absolutely in love with it. 10 minutes later, Xielin, Feng Mei, Yeling, Qinbo, and Song Fei were all outside the top 100. Feng Mei finished at 212. The priests can heal your body between challenges. They can't do anything about being called out by name in front of 400 people 6 times in a row. Any objections to these rankings? Asked Guojian. No! Of course not. It was the fairest thing any of them had ever seen. Then a crowd of girls came at me with their eyes shining, asking if they could hold my dragons, and little Joe's mouth started sparking and little Han began condensing frost, because both of them had just gotten a lungful of perfume and considered it an attack. You can touch them, I said. You'll bear the consequences. The girls left. To calm my daughters down, I had to promise them 100 amethyst lionhead geese, roasted and braised. An amethyst lionhead goose is 200 credits, 20,000 credits. I went bankrupt again. It's fine. They were happy. Then the college selection ceremony started, and 4 deans tried to buy me in public. Combat Academy opened. 1 S-grade herb, 1 S-grade universal skill book. Out of Guojian's personal vault, since you can't requisition that through channels. Magic Academy raised, everything combat offered, plus an extra S-rank dragon language mage book. Enhancement Academy, which is the richest of the 4, couldn't produce S-rank books at all. Those aren't purchasable, not with dragon coins, not with holy crystal stones. So Li Yuji offered every forging and enchanting material in the Academy's stores, free, forever. And then Shen Yu, who had been smiling the entire time and saying nothing, opened her mouth. 1 dose of Heavenly Fire Divine Essence. 1 dose of Heavenly Cold Divine Essence. Come to Combat Academy. 2 heads shot out of my collar so fast the ears were still moving. They looked at her. Then they started shoving their faces into my neck and making a specific, escalating whine that I can only compare to a person who has just seen something in a shop window. Guojian's grin took up his entire face. The other 3 deans sagged. Because those 2 items are effectively unobtainable. Heavenly Fire Divine Essence is refined from fire coral that only grows in the endless fire domain. Heavenly Cold Divine Essence comes from extreme cold snow lotus in the frozen forbidden region. Human beings do not walk into either of those places. The strong ones circle the edges, hoping to find one. Shen Yu can get them because her uncle runs this academy and spends his free time walking into places nobody comes back from. And she'd had them prepped in her pocket before the exam started. She'd read my dragons better than the other 3 deans read me. Dean Liu, Dean Li, thank you. I couldn't fight it. My choice is Combat Academy. She took me straight to the Combat Academy vault afterward, through a door of heavenly profound black crystal that a 3rd-tier powerhouse couldn't open, into a room like a museum, full of things that had been dead for centuries and were still radiating malice. 3 jade bottles and a skill book. Heavenly Fire Divine Essence, Heavenly Cold Divine Essence, 1 more S-grade herb, 1 S-rank universal skill book. Straight out of a dean's private collection, no application, no queue. Go rest, classes resume tomorrow, she smiled, and prepare for your 2nd job advancement. I'm filing for your 2nd-tier trial tomorrow. You're 28 with 1 million experience banked. Cash it in, and you'll hit 30. I got back to Villa 1 and somebody was standing outside it. Li Wei! Ye Ling, with her whole face full of it. Guilt, apology, whatever she'd rehearsed on the walk up. I shut the door. And I want to be exact about why, because it wasn't jealousy and it wasn't a broken heart. I never wanted anything from her. She could team with whoever she liked and date whoever she liked, and it would not have registered. Here's what actually did it. I considered her a friend, and a room full of people spent a month calling me a fraud to her face, her teammates leading it, and she stood in that room every single time and said nothing. Then afterward, she'd come find me privately and do the sad expression. That's not a friend. That's someone who wants the credit for being decent without ever paying for it. So from that evening, she was a stranger, permanently, and I have never once had to work at that. Then the system rang. Freshman exam. Challenge exceeded. 1 diamond chest, 1 legendary chest, and, for doing it publicly, 2 more legendary chests. 3 legendary chests. The last legendary chest I opened contained Bloodline Fusion, the SSS passive that this entire life is built on. I opened the diamond first, a lucky potion, a level 30 gold armor set, an S-grade forging material that has a 50% chance of upgrading a piece of equipment of full grade, and a level 30 gold sword whose description ends with the words exclusively produced by the system. Even the diamond chest was obscene, so I stopped, sat down, and thought very carefully about the many hundreds of hours I had spent in my previous life pulling on gacha banners. Then I drank the lucky potion, 24 hours of unparalleled luck, tastes like orange soda, and opened all 3 legendary chests at once. 1 Dragon Egg, SSS, SSS rank talent, Divine Perception, SSS rank Dragon Tamer class skill, Flame God. I spent the rest of that lucky day at the enchanting hall, and I want to be clear that I did not deserve any of it. 3 enchantments on the falling flame staff. All 3 landed. All 3 triggered 50 times luck multipliers, the rainbow flash, 3 in a row, on a gold grade weapon, in front of a room full of witnesses with phones out. Then I had it forged up a grade with the immortal jade essence, and that landed too. The video hit 10 million views in 5 hours, and the forum spent a day arguing about whether I was secretly the heir to the campus grocery chain because I'd also won their customer lottery twice in 24 hours, wiping out 60,000 credits of meat bills. I was not going to explain the potion. Then I went to the Poison Mist mountain range. It's a wilderness map the Academy owns, sealed under a magic array built by a level 90 mage to keep the fog from getting out. Students need to be level 40 and must bring a support class with purification, because the fog alone strips your health. At the center is a pool. Even level 50 powerhouses can't get near it without a priest. Shen Yu specifically told me to stay away from it, which was unfortunate because the pool was the entire reason I was going. The sophomore at the gate begged me to bring a partner. I walked in alone, got the poisoned notice, watched my health start draining, and watched superior healing simply put it back faster than the poison could take it. Everybody else deals with a debuff by purifying it. My answer is, go ahead, drain me. Let's find out which of us is faster. Then I used Heavenly Dragon Travel for the first time, and a pair of 4-meter crimson wings burning with divine fire came out of my back, and a dragon's door came out of my own chest, and every venomous thing on that mountain either ran or lay down. The trip that takes other students hours took me 12 seconds. The pool was dark blue and took 10% of my health per second, and the egg in my coat started pulling toward it hard enough that I could feel it. So I threw a holy dragon egg into the most toxic body of water in the province and sat down to wait several days. 14 seconds later, the pool turned clear. Perfectly clear. Mountain spring clear. The pool that a level 90 4th tier great sage cannot fully purify because there's an ancient venom beast's core sitting at the bottom of it. Then it started to inhale. The suction turned into a vortex, and the vortex went up, and across the entire mountain range, every last strand of poison fog got dragged out of the air and into that pool. Sophomores farming 3 valleys away looked up and watched the sky clear over a place that hadn't seen sunlight in living memory. And the egg came back up to the surface, carried, very gently, by the level 50 boss that lives in that pool, which had come up from the bottom to hand deliver it and did not dare to be rude. The shell had changed. It now had rows of emerald divine patterns on it. Nether Poison Sacred Dragon. Note appended. The Nether Poison Sacred Dragon is completely full and currently extremely satisfied. Try taming it now. First try. The shell cracked, and the first thing that came out was not a head. It was a small, round backside, wedging its way out. Then the top came off, and I got a look at my third daughter. Emerald green, jade horns. Very small. And the instant she saw me, she picked up the broken half of her own eggshell, held it up in front of her face like a shield, and peeked over the top of it. So that's the family now. One who destroys things, one who is a princess, and one who is severely socially anxious. I fed her eggshell fragments by hand, piece by piece, until she stopped hiding. Her kit, at level 1. Body of 10,000 poisons, S. Immune to all negative status and all poison. Nether Poison Breath, S. A poison that cannot be dispelled or removed. Nether Abyss Curse, S. Enemies lose 95% of their status resistance and lose their level advantage entirely. Instant Death Poison, S. An aura. Everything hostile within a kilometer takes 300% more damage, and anything under 20% health simply dies. Level advantage is the whole reason a higher level opponent beats a lower level one. Your controls get shortened or ignored. Some of your skills just don't apply. My shy little egg hider deletes that. Then Little Jew and Little Han came out of the pet space at speed, having just finished digesting their divine essence, and having felt a 4th holy dragon in their territory, and hit her with 2 full waves of dragon pressure and open hostility. The poor thing folded herself up inside her own wings and shook. Suppress it. Now, that's your sister. They dropped it instantly, drooped their ears, and looked extremely guilty. Then Little Jew got curious, leaned in to sniff, and terrified her again. Then Little Han came over, and the 2 of them looked her up and down while she peeked out from behind me. This is your new sister. She's 3rd. You're the elder sisters, so you look after her. Little Joe processed sister, pinned the new one flat with both front paws, and started licking her. Little Han watched with an expression I can only describe as sympathy from personal experience. I named her B-Yo for the green of new grass, Little Yu, Gigi sometimes because that's the noise she makes. Then I had to go tell my dean that I'd accidentally purified an entire wilderness resource map, permanently downgrading it, because with no fog the monsters lose their power source and start dropping in level immediately. The two little ones chewed the poison pearl at the bottom, I assume, said Shen Yu, with her face in her hand. Yes. Little Joe, Little Han, take one for your sister. Any other student would have been destroyed for that. She sighed and told me to keep them on a leash on wilderness maps in future, or this university will not have a single field resource left standing. Also, 9 tomorrow. Your second-tier trial's approved. That realm's been sitting unused for its entire existence. It's about to get its first second-tier Dragon Tamer. That's not a joke either. The requirement for a Dragon Tamer's second job advancement is level 30 and at least one Dragon Pet. Every Dragon Tamer in recorded history has failed at the second half of that sentence. I had 4 paths available. Dragon Spirit Priest, pure support, makes your dragons unstoppable, makes you a wet paper bag. Dragon Spirit Mage, inherits your dragon's magic at 100% power. Little Jew's actual dragon breath, out of my hands. Strongest caster in the world, and you lose the dragon's physique entirely. Dragon Spirit Warrior, inherits the dragon's body and dragon transformation. Unkillable in melee, paper against magic. Holy Dragon Knight, requires at least one holy dragon and is worse than each of the other 3 at their specialty and better than all of them at everything else. There's supposedly a 5th, Dragon Slayer, found by dragon tamers who could never contract anything in some ruined dragon battlefield. You get strong by eating dragons, blood, meat, marrow. And if you happen to have a dragon pet when you take it, the job change eats that too. Since the high and mighty dragons won't have us, we'll become dragons ourselves. It is, on paper, the strongest option available to my class. I would not take it if you put it in my hands. I've got 3 small things at home who draw pictures on my walls with their paws. They never lie to me, and they will never sell me to anyone, which is more than I can say for the last friend I had. I took Holy Dragon Knight. The trial itself was a white room with no monsters in it. Summon all your dragon pets, said the prompt. Little Yu stood politely on my left because she can't fly yet. Little Han claimed my shoulder. Little Ju came in like a missile and attached herself to my face. Ding! The dragon pet's affection for you has exceeded the threshold. You pass. That was it. That was the entire second job advancement trial that has blocked every dragon tamer in history. Holy Dragon Knight. Every class skill up 10%. Stats from 2500 to 2700. And a new second tier passive, Holy Dragon Bond. Different Holy Dragon, different bond. Stacks. Cannot be purified or dispelled. Scales with our levels. Blazing Bond, all attack power up 300%, fire skills up 300%, all 3 speeds up 200. Winter Bond, magic attack up 150%, and every buff placed on me is amplified 400%. Nether Abyss Bond, immune to all negative status effects permanently, a 1 kilometer aura stripping 50% status resistance off everything hostile, and every hit I land poisons, immune to all negative status effects, permanently. Which means every control chain in this world, every stun and root and silence anyone has ever built a strategy around, does not apply to me anymore. I walked out of that realm with 3 bonds live and the whole country arguing about me on the internet, because Fengtian Academy had just published its roster for the 10,000 Kingdoms tournament qualifiers. The 10,000 Kingdoms tournament exists because 100 years of unclaimed continents nearly started a world war. When the map exploded, whole landmasses appeared that belonged to nobody, packed with resources, and nations began sending armies at each other over them until somebody sensible pointed out that this was suicide, with rift monsters already walking around. So they built the Global Transferer Federation, gave it sole rights to explore unclaimed land, and every October it counts up everything found that year, and then it divides the entire planet's resource pool by the results of a tournament between children. Contestants must be 20 or younger. Individual results are worth 70% of the allocation. Team results are worth 30, which means every nation sends third years who've already done their third job advancement. A second year on a roster is unusual. A first year is unheard of. Fengtian Academy had put a freshman in the individual bracket as 5th seed. The internet detonated. Fengtian only reached the semifinal last year, and this is your response? Do you people have any shame? I was actually hoping you'd make a comeback. Whatever the deans at Fengtian are doing with their brains, it isn't thinking. Even the second and third years on campus were disgusted. Put Weibo in. Anyone. Why a freshman? He contracted a dragon, supposedly. No pictures, no video, nothing. He couldn't contract an egg. The freshmen, meanwhile, were having the time of their lives. Brother Fan takes off. I cannot wait for 2 holy dragons to show up on national television. And the system, as I stepped out of the trial realm, rang once. New challenge quest detected. Fengtian Academy, 5th seed, 10,000 Kingdoms tournament, Dragon Kingdom qualifier. The sophomores took it worse than anyone. Understand their position. They'd been on this campus a year. They'd ground for every credit. And the school had just handed the 5th individual seed at the most important event on the planet, the one that decides how much of the world's resources this country eats next year, to a first year who'd been here a month. So they came to collect. The first one caught me outside the Combat Academy building. Gao Yuan, level 50-something, extremely confident, opened without warning. Little Joe was out of my collar before I'd finished turning around. He spent the next 3 weeks in a healing ward. The second was He Jun, level 56, and he brought friends and did it properly, an ambush, in an enclosed corridor, 3 exits covered. Little Han filled that corridor with ice fog in under a second, and after that none of them could see anything, including the thing that was moving inside it. They were all still alive when the school arrived. None of them were standing. And the third one was the problem. Wei Bo, level 59, vice president of the student union, 3rd year, a name on the tournament roster, and a man with the political standing to make my life difficult if he wanted to. He challenged me formally, on the arena, in front of everyone, which was the only clever thing he did. I opened with blazing holy flash into his eyes at 4 meters. He didn't see the rest. The priests brought him back. He came out of it 10 levels lighter, which for a 3rd year is years of work gone, and his own club voted him out of his position inside a week, because in this world, a leader who loses that publicly stops being a leader. Nobody challenged me after that. Then I went and cleared 4 more diamond dungeons back to back in about 8 minutes total, and I want to be clear that this was not training. It was a shopping trip. Little Yu had just been born and she needed levels, and I had a tournament in 3 weeks. And somewhere in the second dungeon she worked out what she is. Devouring poison shadow. Everything her nether poison kills stands back up on her side. By the 4th realm, I had stopped fighting entirely. I was walking down a diamond corridor behind an army made out of that realm's own dead, hundreds of them, then thousands, every mob we passed joining the back of it, with a green dragon the size of a cat riding my shoulder and looking very pleased with herself. It is, I think, the single most unfair thing in my entire toolkit, and I did not build it. She came with it. Then Fengtian's tournament roster met for the first time, and I got to meet the 4 people I'd be representing this country alongside. 3 3rd years. All tier 3, all around level 60, all of them extremely good, and all of them fresh off a week of watching the entire internet tell them that their school had thrown away the biggest event on the planet on a first year. And Maya Brooke, Dragonkin princess, affiliated to the Orc tribe, one of the strongest students in the year above mine, and, this matters, carrying actual dragon blood in her veins. Diluted, generations thin, but real. The 3 3rd years opened the meeting by explaining to me, at some length and with some care, why I should not be on that roster. They were polite about it. They had a whole argument prepared. One of them had numbers. Little Jew breathed on the table. Not on them, on the table. It was a very small breath, roughly the size of a candle flame, and it took the table, the documents, and the chair nearest to it. Nobody finished the argument. The vote on who would captain took about 4 seconds, and it was unanimous. And afterward, Maya Brooke spent the rest of the meeting standing rather closer to me than she'd intended and looking deeply annoyed about it, because Affinity of All Beasts does not care that you're a princess. It works on anything with beast blood in it, and she had just spent 10 minutes discovering that some part of her wanted to stand behind me. She figured out what was happening about halfway through and moved to the far wall on principle, and I respect that. Then Feng Tian finally opened the Dragon Spirit Realm. That's the item that bought my signature in a conference room in Anning City 11 months earlier. The resource realm they signed over to a provincial top scorer they had never met, because a woman in high heels had watched a classified video and decided to spend whatever it cost. Dragon spirit grass grows there and nowhere else on this continent. It is the food you feed a young dragon, and every beast tamer in this country with a low-tier pet buys it at whatever price Feng Tian feels like naming. I walked in with a harvesting license and no supervision. Then I had the whole hall refined into elixir by a master alchemist at considerable expense and gave it to my daughters. Little Joe went to 35, little Han to 32, little Yu from newborn to 30 in an afternoon. And through bloodline fusion, 20% of each, stacked 3 ways, no cap, my own 4 stats came out at 7,500. There are level 50 second-tier powerhouses in this country who do not have 7,500. I was 19 and I had not finished my first year. And I remember sitting on my kitchen floor that evening with 3 sleeping dragons on me, looking at that number and thinking about a man standing on a playground telling me to avoid monsters and try to feed myself. Then there was a banquet. It was one of those pre-tournament functions where every school in the province puts its team in a ballroom at the Shenlong Hotel so that the sponsors can look at them. A giant race student named Gareth decided the freshmen needed handling, walked up behind me, and put a hand on my shoulder. Little Han froze his arm from the shoulder down before I'd finished turning around, and something in that arm gave way, and Gareth discovered what it feels like to be an exhibit. That got the attention of a level 100 4th-tier martial god named Alistair, who was there as somebody's team leader, and who decided to make a point by letting his pressure out across the room. Every single person in that ballroom went to their knees. I was holding a glass. I kept holding it, because I have 20% of 3 holy dragons in my blood, and a passive that shares 80% of everything I take with them, and a 4th-tier human being leaning on me registers as a change in the weather. He looked at me for a long moment, then pulled it back in, and did not speak to me again that evening. And then the actual disaster happened, which is that the food came out. I had brought all 3 of them. I want you to understand the scale here. Little Ju alone had been eating 100 jin a day since she was a week old. Now there were 3 of them, and they were levels 30 to 35. They started at our table. Then they moved to the next one, then the one after that. By the time the staff worked out what was happening, 3 holy dragons the size of house cats had cleared 50 tables at a black tie function at the most expensive hotel in Fengtian province, and the remaining guests were eating standing up at speed because they had correctly identified the situation as a race. The hotel manager stood at the edge of the room with a face I will remember for the rest of my life. I paid. It hurt. And 2 days later, I walked into the Dragon Kingdom qualifiers of the 10,000 Kingdoms tournament as the 5th seed of Fengtian Academy in a hall with 106 competitors in it, every single one of whom had been reading about me on the internet for a week. The Shenlong Arena holds several 100,000 people, and it was full. First round drew me against Ethan, Silvermoon Forest, 2nd seed, level 67, and a Moon Spirit Summoner, 3,000 moonlight spirits on the field before the countdown finished, which is the kind of opening that ends most matches on its own. I let little Yu off my shoulder. Nether poison breath across the front rank, and then every single thing it killed stood back up wearing green. 10,000 nether poison battle soldiers against 3,000 moon spirits. Ethan surrendered while his own summons were still dying. Nobody in that building knew what they'd just watched. All they'd seen was a freshman who out-summoned a Silvermoon 2nd seed by a factor of 3 without revealing a dragon. The second match of the round was Demon Tribe's Blake against a human named Mo Lee. Blake won it early and then kept going after he'd won it, in a way the arena did not enjoy, in front of Mo Lee's school. Then he stood in the middle of the ring and made a speech about bloodlines, and the tribal sections cheered, and the human sections did not, and something ugly went through that arena and stayed there. I filed him. The other thing that happened on day 1 was Ye Wen, Ice Spirit Academy, level 64, Dark Mage. The only student the Ice Queen has ever taken, and the Ice Queen is a level 182 Frost Archmage. She won her first match by casting twice and moving once. No flourish, no area effects, nothing you'd put in a highlight reel. She simply stood there and answered every single thing her opponent did before he'd finished doing it, and then it was over. Every analyst in the country had her as the favorite. Watching her work, I understood why. And I also understood that she was the only person in that building I was going to have to think about. Round of 32 put me against Leo, Demon Tribe 2nd seed. Swamp Demon elementalized, which means physical attacks pass straight through him. I killed him with poison because poison does not care what your body is made of, and because a shy little green dragon had spent the entire previous week learning what she could do. The arena had no idea what it had seen. Twice now, a dragon tamer had beaten a 2nd seed without a dragon appearing on camera. The Demon Tribe spectators spent the evening praying that the next draw would give them Blake. It did. Blake, Demon Tribe number 1 seed. Storm Demon King, level 69, 3rd tier, and, nobody knew this yet, a twin high demon bloodline, which happens once in 100 million births. He came onto that stage and did the pressure thing. Deep blue eyes full of storm, aura out, leaning on me with everything he had, which is standard. And then he noticed I wasn't looking at him. So I looked up. And Blake's eyes went wide, and his own boiling demon blood went out like a pinched candle, and he heard something that was not in that arena. He panicked and dumped his full demonic pressure to get out from under it. A false start has been detected. Blake is issued a warning. The referee's voice was completely flat. Both fighters are in the ready stance, no attacks, including intimidation. Blake, do it again and you forfeit. Referee, I disagree. He used intimidation on me first. The ring's nanosensors registered no pressure output from your opponent. None. A pause. Does Blake believe the 10,000 Kingdoms officials are biased? Blake looked up at the VIP box for his own team leader, a level 100 4th-tier demon god named Dangus, to speak for him. Dangus was studying the scenery, which told Blake, in front of a national broadcast, that a 4th-tier demon god also had not detected any pressure from me. I hadn't used any. I don't have to. He's a demon, and I have 3 holy dragons in my blood, and bloodline suppression is not a skill you activate. It's just what happens when he makes eye contact. The human sections laughed for about a minute and a half. Then the countdown ran, and Blake got serious, which he should have done in the first place. Twin demon swords, 1 white and 1 purple, storm on one and violet demon fire on the other, wings out, and he opened with storm spike, an A-rank strike so fast that it left a white line in the air and the entire front row flinched. It passed a centimeter from my clothes. I moved about 8 degrees. He came in again, close, and I want to be honest, I couldn't have killed Blake alone that day. Fully demonized, his stats were around 9,000, and mine were about 7,500. I could dance with him, I couldn't finish him. That's what the dragons are for. Little Han asked to go. That's worth noting, she never asks. She's the one who thinks making noise is beneath her. Little Jew tried to jump the queue and got thrown across the pet space by an ice blue tail for it, then took her frustration out on Little Yu, who got slapped for existing. Little Han this time. I put hate mark on Blake, which makes him take 30% more, and chain of resentment on him, which makes him deal 60% less. Then Little Han opened Frost Domain. 9,000 became 2,700. Then it began snowing inside Shenlong Arena. Fine snow, drifting down over hundreds of thousands of people. And the temperature dropped so hard and so fast that the venue's own environmental control array couldn't hold it, and staff had to wake the emergency temperature circle, the one built by a level 90 mage, to stop the audience from freezing in their seats. Blake, meanwhile, was inside it. He swung his best combo at me, and I stood still and let it land, because between armor and chain of resentment and life chain, the damage arrived at approximately the level of a hair being pulled out. Then Icebound took him, an SS skill that ignores level advantage entirely and locks the target out of every skill, every talent, and every piece of gear's protective trigger. He opened his mouth to surrender, and an A-grade silent seal landed across it. He couldn't speak. He could only make noise. The ice fog was thick enough that the referee couldn't see in and wouldn't walk in because entering would change the outcome of a live match. So he stood outside it for 3 minutes and listened. Everyone did. When the fog cleared, there was a figure standing in the middle of it, and Blake was on the ground and not moving. The priests revived him. He came back with the memory intact and started shaking, and he dropped 6 levels, which was the good outcome because he'd taken a balance preservation pill before the match, and without it, he'd have lost 15. His own teammates would not look at him. Round of 16 was Chloe, Dwarf Tribe number 1 seed, Soul Reaper, level 68, and a chubby, round-faced girl holding a level 65 legendary scepter, because dwarves make the best gear on this planet and give it to their own. She'd watched every one of my matches and drawn the correct conclusion, which was that everyone before her had died by being too slow. So she opened with everything at once. Undead Realm, SS, the world goes black and white, my stats drop 30%, and I bleed 1% of my health per second. Then the Spear of 10,000 Deaths and the Soul Insect Army, both S-rank, both aimed at the soul rather than the body, because she'd also worked out that my physique was the problem, and had decided to go around it entirely. Then Soul Reaper, SS, which cannot be dodged by invincibility or movement skills. Smart, genuinely smart. She was the best strategist I faced all week. I stood still and took every single piece of it on purpose. The spears went through my soul. The insects swarmed onto it and started eating, and she reached out and dragged my soul out of my body with a scythe, which she'd held back until last, because that skill only works if her soul is stronger than yours, and if it isn't, she's the one who breaks. She pulled, and what came out on the end of her scythe was calm. I looked looked at her. Chloe's danger sense went off, and she ordered her Soul Reaper to retreat, and it couldn't, because my soul had reached up and taken hold of the blade. I've been waiting for this, little Jew. Gawoo! And my soul caught fire, not metaphorically. The divine fire came off it in sheets, and the spears burned, and the insects burned, and the Soul Reaper's scythe melted off its handle, and the thing standing in the middle of Shenlong Arena stopped being a human soul and became a 100-meter blazing dragon soul with the majesty of a radiant dragon coming off it. That's the flame god effect on the blazing bond, which unlocked when little Jew hit 35. 100% soul damage reduction, and my soul takes her form. Every single thing Chloe had spent that match building had been aimed at the one part of me that had become immune to it 48 hours earlier. I looked down at her, 100 meters down, on fire, in a stadium full of screaming people. Give up. She burst into tears and gave up, and I'd like to state for the record that I do not blame her at all. The crowd went from stunned to loud, and while they were loud, somebody in the stands got curious and looked me up. And found. No family, no clan, no sponsor. An orphanage in a 5th-tier city. Every single other competitor left in that bracket had a house behind them. Some of them had 2 4th-tier powerhouses at home. I was the only ordinary person left standing in it. That's the moment the arena turned, and it wasn't the dragons that did it. Quarterfinal was Oscar, mammoth orc. Tusks, trunk, more muscle than a giant, and a hidden 3rd-tier corruption priest, which is to say a wizard in the body of a siege engine who does not care if you close the distance. He summoned 10,000 corrupt witch spirits, then had them form a magic battle formation, which multiplied their stats so hard that any one of them could have flattened Ethan's entire moon spirit army. He also had substitute spirit, SS, no cooldown. Every point of damage he takes goes to a spirit instead, and if he takes a fatal hit, a spirit dies in his place. While any spirit lives, Oscar cannot be hurt. So I let the front rank run their spears through me, and while they were doing that, little Yu opened instant death poison. 300% damage taken, in a 1-kilometer radius. Everything under 20% health simply dies. His unkillable 10,000 died at roughly the same time, which meant that for 1 second, Oscar had no spirits left. 1 second is a long time. First man into the semifinals. The semifinal was Luna, Silvermoon Forest, Elf Princess. Number 1 on every prediction list in the country, and she carries an actual holy relic, the lowest grade 1 in Silvermoon's vaults, and still the single strongest object in that building. I fought her with little Yu in cub form, just the cub. The socially anxious one, who hides behind eggshells, who had to be coaxed out from behind my leg the first time she met her sisters. Little Yu headbutted the strongest competitor in the country across the arena. Then Luna blinked out with Moonwalk, which is the finest escape technique any of us had ever seen, and little Yu caught her mid-blink and did it again, because Moonwalk is slower than 2 holy dragon sisters playing tag on a weekend. Twice, in front of a national audience, a cat-sized green thing. Miss Luna, I said, it's not too late to concede. She did not take that well. She went completely calm, which is the correct response, and also the last mistake she made, and fired Holy Moon Piercing Arrow, her SSS rank causal skill, undodgeable, the single trump card the entire country knew she had, directly at me. And little Yu, who is a coward about strangers and dogs and loud noises and absolutely nothing else where I'm concerned, put herself in front of it. Then she grew. 300 meters of nether poison sacred dragon, filling a stadium, and the poison coming off her body corroding the air white. The referee, a 4th-tier level 100 professional, later said that was the first time in his life he had felt small. Because it wasn't a dragon. It was a holy dragon, and until that afternoon, human civilization's official position was that no human being had ever contracted one, and that no human being ever would. Luna lost. So did the entire recorded history of my class. In the other semifinal, Ye Wen erased Zara, Blood Clan #1 seed, an ancient blood spirit demon eye floating behind her, illusions and fear, and a 30% magic resistance strip in about 2 moves, without ever once looking like she was trying. Which set the final. Dragon Tamer against the Ice Queen's only student. I walked into the final with little Yu on my shoulder and my hands in my pockets, and I want to be honest about my state of mind, which was relaxed. I'd beaten the Storm Demon King, a Soul Reaper, a Mammoth Orc who couldn't be damaged, and the strongest competitor in the country. There was one person left, and she was a mage. Ye Wen walked in and did not summon anything, and did not open a domain, and did not say a single word to me. She lifted one hand. And the thing she was holding came apart into light and settled over my shoulder, and little Yu made a sound I have never heard her make, a Dragon Slayer lock. I don't know where the Ice Queen got it. I don't want to know what it cost, or who had to die somewhere for it to exist. What I know is what it did, which was that little Yu's combat power went out like somebody had pulled a switch. Not reduced, not debuffed, suppressed, off. And my socially anxious little green dragon, who 2 hours earlier had headbutted the strongest competitor in this country across an entire arena, went very small on my shoulder and started to shake. That is the only moment in that whole tournament when I was not in control of the room. And I want to be precise about what actually got to me. It wasn't the tactical problem. The lock doesn't hurt a holy dragon. It can't. It just makes her helpless. She has never been helpless in her life. She came out of a poison pool that had eaten a mountain range. And she was sitting on my shoulder discovering what it feels like when your own body stops answering, and I was getting every second of it through the bond. Ye Wen had spent the entire tournament being the calmest person in the building, and she was still calm now, and she was waiting politely for me to work out that I had nothing left to bring. Because everybody in that arena had done the same regrets. Everybody had watched me win 5 matches with a green dragon. Everybody had concluded that the green dragon was the answer. I reached up, took little Yu off my shoulder with both hands, and put her on the ground behind me. "Stay there," I said. "This isn't going to take long." Then I called little Joe and little Han, both of them at once, in true form, in a stadium. 300 meters of blazing holy dragon with divine fire coming off her in sheets, and 300 meters of frost holy dragon beside her, and the temperature at the north end of that arena and the temperature at the south end stopped being the same temperature. The energy shield over the ring flexed. Several 100,000 people stopped making noise at once, and every camera in the Dragon Kingdom got the shot at the same time, which was 2 holy dragons standing in one arena, which is a thing that had not happened in the recorded history of this species. Ye Wen looked up at them for a long moment. She had a Dragon Slayer lock. Singular. Nobody has 2. "I concede," she said, and she said it clearly, without theater, without making anybody wait, which is why she's the only person from that tournament I still respect. Given that Ye Wen has voluntarily conceded, Li Wei is the individual champion of the Dragon Kingdom qualifiers of the 10,000 Kingdoms tournament. Let us congratulate the first dragon tamer in history to hold 3 sacred dragons. The building came apart. Ye Wen came over afterward and told me, straight, that she accepted the loss completely. Little Joe growled at her the whole time, because little Joe does not forgive people who frighten her sister. I said nothing and walked off the stage, and I ignored every single one of the several 100,000 people chanting my name on the way out, because they weren't cheering for me. They were cheering for a champion. Those are different things, and the difference is the entire reason I sleep well. Ding! System detects the host has won the individual competition. Partial reward issuing. 1 Dragon Egg. SSS. Remaining rewards pending team results. I got a 4th egg out of it and a 30-day timer, and the only thought in my head walking out of that arena was, I wonder what kind she'll be. That evening there was a closing banquet with an auction attached, which is where the regional tournament actually happens. Every competing region brings out things you cannot buy. Specialty materials that only grow in one forbidden zone. Legendary equipment. S-rank skill books. Amethyst ore from the dwarf tribe. Premium blood essence from the blood clan. Heavenly fire divine essence from the endless fire domain, which appears at auction roughly once a decade. Winners get bidding slots. Feng Tian gave me 3. 3 slots is the sort of thing families go into debt over. You spend them on a weapon you'll carry for a decade, or a skill book that changes your class ceiling. I sat down at that table with 200 competitors and a national broadcast watching, and I bid all 3 slots on permanent attribute buff pills and premium consumables. Food. Snacks. Things my daughters like. I want to explain the finances because I wasn't being funny. 4 holy dragons at their current levels cost me somewhere north of 30,000 credits a day in raw ingredients, and that's from a supermarket that has flagged me as a wholesale account. I had won 2 tournaments that week and I was still functionally broke. The single highest value purchase available to me on that table was, honestly and unglamorously, meat. The room did not know where to look. Somebody from the dwarf tribe delegation put down their glass. I regret nothing. Little Jew ate for a month. Then I had 5 days before the team competition, and I spent them shopping in the only way that has ever worked for me. First, Balthazar Temple, a story realm, and a nasty one, the sort where the boss is a memory and the walls remember you. It gave up 2 things. An S-rank Holy Dragon Knight skill called Summon of the Holy Dragon, which yanks any of my dragons back to my side instantly from anywhere on a map, and which has since managed my life more than once. And a great sword. Balthazar's sword. Semi-divine. Understand where that sits. The ladder runs white, blue, purple, gold, spirit weapon, sacred relic, and then semi-divine. And there is exactly one rung above semi-divine, and it is called mythical. Level 100 4th tier powerhouses covet semi-divine gear. National assets get issued semi-divine gear. I pulled it out of a chest at 19, and I read the name on it, and I thought, nice sword. I did not ask who Barthazar was. Remember that. Second, Droma's Snowfield, epic grade, and this is the one that stayed with me. I walked into a white plain under a white sky and found the boss sitting at the far end of it, and I stopped walking, because the boss of Droma's Snowfield is a head, an enormous severed dragon head, frozen into the ground, cursed, still generating enough malice to run a raid encounter by itself. Ancient frost giant dragon, Droma. Not a monster shaped like a dragon, not a construct, not a simulation. The actual remains of an ancient dragon who, in life, was somewhere over level 900, which, in the language of the world above ours, means she was a step short of being called a god. And somebody had killed her and taken her apart and left the pieces scattered down here in the lower world where teenagers farm them for loot on a Tuesday. My 3 cubs breathed on it together, fire and frost and nether poison braided into one column. It lasted 10 seconds. And afterward, I stood in a snowfield holding the loot, and I did not feel triumphant. I felt like a man who has found a body in a field and is beginning to understand that somebody put it there. Somebody killed an ancient dragon. Somebody strong enough to do that took her apart and scattered the pieces across an entire plain like debris, and human civilization built dungeon tickets around the remains and sells entry. I have 3 dragons at home. They draw pictures on my walls with their paws. Little Han signs hers. The loot was a semi-divine ring called Droma's Grievance and a staff, her staff. They pulled it out of her and put it in a chest, and I picked it up, and it is called Droma's Wish, which is a name I also did not think about. I came back onto campus as a first year carrying 2 semi-divine artifacts, and the entire school assumed my family had bought them for me, and I did not correct a single person. The team competition opened 3 days later, and I did something in the first match that I'd been planning since the individual final. Every commentator in the building, every opposing captain, and every one of several 100,000 spectators had come to see 3 holy dragons. The betting markets had them appearing inside the first minute. My own teammates had built their positioning around it. I summoned nothing. I walked out to the center line alone with Droma's Wish in my left hand and did not so much as reach for my collar. The other captain waited about 8 seconds for the sky to fill up, and when it didn't, he committed. I killed the front line with the staff, not a dragon, not a bonded skill, a staff and fast casting and staffless casting, and 7,500 in every stat, and a dragon language mage's spell list on top of a physique that lets me stand in a melee and not care. It took under a minute, and when I walked back to my own line, my third-year teammates looked at me and admitted out loud on a live feed that they had not contributed anything and were completely at peace with it. I did it that way for a reason. There were 63 other nations watching this broadcast, and every single one of them was building a plan around 4 holy dragons. Let them wonder whether I need them. The bracket after that took 2 days. The Orc tribe brought a fortress build, 3 frontliners and a shield wall and a corruption priest behind it, and they intended to grind us down over 20 minutes. Little Han opened Frost Domain and took 70% off all 5 of them at once, and Maya Brook walked through the shield wall like it was a hedge, and it took 90 seconds. The Blood Clan tried a fear composition, illusions and blood spirits, and a demon eye that strips magic resistance. Little Yu turned their own summons against them, which is what she does now, and their captain had to fight her own dead. The Dwarf tribe were the only ones who nearly made it interesting. Their entire nation forges better gear than anybody alive, and they had put every scrap of it on 5 people, and Chloe was on that team, with her scepter and a great deal to prove. She got further than anyone else did. She got about 4 minutes. And in the final, Silvermoon Forest, with Luna on the roster, who had already learned this lesson once, in front of the same crowd, from the same green dragon. She learned it again. Double crown, individual champion and team champion of the Dragon Kingdom qualifiers, both held by a first year, in a competition where putting a second year on the roster is considered a scandal that gets deans investigated. 11 months earlier, a principal had told me my class had research value. They gave me the individual trophy and the team trophy on the same stage, and the deans of Fengtian Academy stood behind me for the photographs, and Jiang Bo, who runs the Magic Academy and who had tried to buy me out from Under Combat Academy in public, looked as if he had swallowed something. And I stood up there in front of the entire country holding 2 trophies, and the only thing I was actually thinking about was a 30-day timer with 2 days left on it, and what might be inside it. She hatched on a bright afternoon and turned my entire room into space. Star power came out of the shell like fireworks, and the room went dark, and stars scattered across the ceiling and the walls and the floor, and in the middle of it, a small head pushed up half an eggshell and looked at me with a pair of eyes that were genuinely made of night sky. Star Moon, Holy Dragon, Lord of the Galaxy. She waited. She didn't bolt, she didn't hide, and she didn't rush me. She sat there under half a shell like a helmet until she decided I was safe, and then she stood up and opened her wings. Deep blue, not little Han's clean ice, the blue of the far end of the Milky Way. Chirp? Then she reached out with both front paws, took her own eggshell off her head, and started eating it politely. And when I helped her break it up, she made a sound that came through the bond as, unmistakably, thank you. She was 4 minutes old, and she said thank you. Her kit, at level 1, Star and Moon Body S, reduces magic and physical damage by 80%, true damage by 100%, and reflects 80% of everything she takes back at the attacker as true damage. Dragon Breath S, true damage. Death Star Shower S, area true damage. Annihilation Black Hole S, anything with a single stat lower than hers gets pulled in, and while it's in there it loses its senses, its skills, its talents, and its equipment effects. Everything she does is true damage. True damage ignores armor, resistance, level advantage, and every defensive stat in the game, which is why, less than a day after hatching, I took her into a level 50 Diamond Realm and let her fight things 60 levels above her, and she came out at level 25 in about a minute with her 4 stats at 5,500. She's polite, she's mature, and she is a lunatic. She sat in my arms watching her sisters level a swamp and vibrated with the desire to get in there. I named her Kaguya, Little Knight. Then Little Ju and Little Yu tackled her and licked her face for 4 minutes. And little Han watched with the specific sympathy of somebody who has been through it. And that was the family complete. 4 holy dragons, 1 human. And through bloodline fusion, 20% of each, stacked, no cap, my 4 stats crossed a number that I am not going to write down because at the time I didn't believe it either. Then the Global Transferer Federation announced the host of this year's World Tournament, the Holy Empire. Which meant that in 6 weeks, I'd be standing in the City of Dawn representing this country against 63 others. Which meant a month of national training camp, and before that, the school gave the roster 5 days off. I went home. Anning City is 3 hours by transfer array, and about 11 months by every other measure. I got off at the same station I'd left from, carrying a school-issue sword and a bag, and walked the same road, and pushed open the same gate, which still does not lock. I've offered to fix it twice. I got about 4 steps into the courtyard. Brother Chinfan! Then I was a tree again. 2 on the legs, 1 on the back, 1 hanging off my arm, and a very small one who has decided that the correct way to greet me is to run at my knees at full speed and stop with her face. Some of them are new. There are 41 now. Li Ma came out from the back to see what the noise was, wiping her hands, and she has stopped looking tired, and I noticed that before I noticed anything else in that courtyard. She quit the 3rd job in the spring. She quit the 2nd one a month after that, and she fought me about it for a week first. There are 4 paid staff now, real ones, around level 20, hired properly with contracts, and their job is to teach these kids pre-job change fundamentals, so that not one of them walks into that magic circle as ignorant as I did. I got the letters this year, 2 of our older ones placed into key academies. Have you eaten? Not yet. Then why are you standing outside? I cooked. Obviously I cooked. I own a 2nd-tier life class and a kitchen full of new appliances I paid for, and there was no version of that evening where I let anybody else do it. 41 children and a woman who has raised every single one of them in a courtyard under strings of lights that work now. And 4 holy dragons let a yard full of small humans climb all over them for 3 hours. Every one of them. Little Ju got ridden. Little Han, who has bitten a duke's daughter and frozen a giant's arm off, and does not permit any living creature except me to touch her, sat perfectly still while a 6-year-old put a paper crown on her head and then wore it for the rest of the evening. Little Yu disappeared into the toy box and had to be found. Little Knight sat in the middle of a circle of children being read to, out loud, badly, by a boy who is 7 and only knows about 30 characters, and she stayed for the whole book. They know exactly what that courtyard is. They've known since the 1st week. Through the bond, they can feel what it does to me, and they have filed it accordingly, and there is a very short list of things in this world they will not incinerate on sight, and that list is me, each other, and everyone inside that gate. Li Ma stood in the doorway and watched all of it. She did not ask me one single question. Not about the tournament, not about the trophies, not about the 4 impossible creatures playing tag with her children in her yard. She has never asked. In 11 years, she has never once demanded to know where I was. For a long time, I thought that was because she didn't want to know. It isn't. It's the most generous thing anybody has ever done for me. And I only worked that out this year. She has spent her whole life looking after children nobody wanted, and she decided a long time ago that the one thing she could still give each of us was the right to have a life she didn't own. So she doesn't ask. She just makes sure there's food when you come back. You're thinner, she said, which is objectively false. I left the next morning at 6 before the kids were up because I'm a coward about goodbyes. 10 days later, the Black Blood demon sect came out of the ground. 10 years ago, this country ran an extermination campaign against an organization called the Black Blood Demon Sect, and everybody agreed afterward that it was finished. It was not finished. It went quiet, which is a completely different thing. For 10 years, it recruited. Not warlords, not fugitives, office workers. Delivery drivers, street vendors, municipal staff, ordinary people who go to work in the morning and say hello to their neighbors, wearing black robes underneath. What the sect sells is a body. Demon spawn are the things that come out of the rift, and the popular image of them is monsters with 6 arms. That image is wrong. Real demon spawn are beautiful, perfect proportions, perfect skin, and 3 innate techniques that come free at birth. Super body, which regenerates them, extraordinary growth, which makes them stronger after every fight they survive, and immortal, which gives them multiple lives, so that killing one only kills the current one. So the sect harvests demon blood and offers it to people. Drink this and stop being human. Some of them can't take it and stay in their filthy human bodies and hate the ones who could. They came out of the ground everywhere at once, nationwide, in one afternoon, in 40 cities. And I knew immediately that it was about me, because they took Anning City. Anning City is a 5th-tier city on the far edge of the map with nothing in it, except an orphanage. They wanted the Dragon Tamer alive. The cult leader had given that order personally, because a dragon tamer under their control means holy dragons under their control. And I want you to sit with that for a second. And they'd worked out the same thing everybody eventually works out, which is that I have exactly one soft place. They went for the orphanage first. Here is the part I did not know until afterward. There were 3 4th-tier powerhouses quietly stationed around that courtyard. This country had put 3 national assets on a children's home in a nothing city months earlier, without telling me. One of them is a spatial magic god, and the instant the attack started, he moved every single person in that building, every child, and Li Ma somewhere else, in one motion. The sect's own 4th tiers went after them, which pulled all 4 of the sect's heavy hitters off the board and out of the city. So when I got there, the courtyard was empty, and the gate was open, and there was nobody inside. And I found out they were safe about 90 seconds before somebody put a knife in my back. I'd come in with Shun Yu and about 300 students from Fengtian because the school had sent relief to the war zones and I had asked for this one. We were standing on the city wall with the local commander, a man named Sun Chao, who ran Anning City's defense, who had signed my orphanage's paperwork for years. And 4 cult heavyweights on the opposite wall looked at me and smiled at exactly the wrong moment. Divine perception went off in my head like a struck bell. Dragon scale came up over me before I'd finished the thought, not crimson, star-patterned. Because past level 70, heavenly dragon travel doesn't just give me wings, it gives me dragon transformation, and I get to choose whose power I wear. I picked Little Knights because star and moon reduces damage and reflects it. The blast took the top off that wall. Shun Yu got a barrier over 300 students in the fraction of a second she had, and when the smoke cleared, they were all alive and screaming. And a level 85 assassin who had been sent for me specifically was pinned to the stone by a burning greatsword. Then Sun Chao stopped being 170 and became 190, and black runes crawled out across his skin, and the man who ran the defense of my home city took a breath of air with a completely new body and enjoyed it. Level 89, 1 level short of Demon Lord. He flicked a finger and put out enough pressure to drop most of that wall to its knees. Students went down. Some of them were crying. Shen Yu, level 87, 3 levels short of 4th tier, went pale and stiff and felt her own magic stall in her veins. Meal. And a lot of people did, and hated themselves for it, which is the point of doing it that way. I didn't. I want to be honest about why. It's not courage. I'm carrying 20% of 4 holy dragons, and a level 89 demon leaning on me registers as a change in air pressure. But 300 students on that wall didn't know that. All they saw was that the freshman didn't kneel. Then I ran at him, and I hit Dragon's Berserk on the way in, which had picked up a new effect somewhere around level 70, Inspire. Every ally in range gets dragon blood boiling. 300 people who had been physically pinned to a stone floor felt 1,000 pounds come off their backs at once. Their stalled magic started moving again, faster than before, and the fear went out of them and got replaced by something else. I put Balthazar's sword into the space where his head was. He wasn't in it. He'd blinked and reappeared 30 meters up with his arms folded, smiling. Where are your holy dragons? Let the little lizards out. We'll see which of us is stronger. His friends called across the wall telling him to hurry, because if a Dragon Kingdom 4th tier arrived, they'd all die. Don't worry, he said. One move. Then he raised both arms and drew a circle in the air, and the demonic energy pouring out of the rift over that city started falling toward him. Shen Yu's face changed completely. 3 demons gather at the top, an SSS rank demon spawn technique. It condenses every scrap of ambient demon energy into 3 spheres and either dominates them across a region at 4th tier that is measured in cities, or fuses all 3 into a single point and puts every bit of that into one target. He fused all 3. Shen Yu turned to me with her voice cracking and used a message skill. Li Wei, you cannot die here. I will tear a rift to Feng Tian with my own life. Tell the deans Anning's city has fallen. The orphanage children were evacuated by 3 4th tiers. They're safe. 5 seconds. Be ready. She'd already decided. She was going to spend her life to buy 1 student a door, and the 300 others on that wall would die where they stood, and she'd made her peace with that arithmetic in about 2 seconds. Teacher Shen, I said, don't waste yourself. Who told you we've lost? Then I walked toward him. Not ran, walked, with my hands loose, straight at a level 89 demon spawn holding a fused annihilation sphere, while every cult heavyweight on that wall backed up out of the blast radius. What's this? Come to your senses at last? Ready to kneel to a noble demon spawn? I didn't answer, which I'd learned by then was the thing that hurt them most. He threw it, and I reached into my collar, took out something small, and threw it back. Chirp! Which turned into a very loud, very outraged, extremely undignified scream, because I had just underhanded my 2-day-old daughter directly into the single most destructive technique a demon spawn has. The two met 100 meters out, and the annihilation field bloomed, 50 meters across, space itself coming apart inside it. And Sun Chao brought up blood and went down backward with his eyes rolled up. His health bar, 100,000, emptied instantly. Immortal triggered. Second life. He straightened up and immediately went down again. Third life. Up. Down. 3 lives in about 4 seconds, and the ground in front of him was ruined, and he had absolutely no idea what was killing him. Here's the mechanism. Star and Moon Body reduces magic and physical damage by 80% and true damage by 100%, and reflects 80% of everything she takes straight back as true damage. Little Knight was sitting inside an annihilation field, taking continuous damage from a technique Sun Chao had personally cast and was personally maintaining. Every tick of it went back into him. He was killing himself, over and over, with his own ultimate, at a rate that outpaced Superbody and burned through Immortal 1 life at a time. The 4 4th-tier cult heavies had already left. The dozen level 85s around the perimeter could not enter that field to help him and had to stand and watch. 4th life. His last one, a converted demon spawn, not born, gets 4 if he's lucky, and 4 is already obscene. He burned an invincibility skill. 5 seconds. Then he finally looked across at me. I had my hands in my pockets. He worked it out. The unknown creature reflects damage. He'd done all of it to himself. Which meant the answer was simply to get it out of the field before his invincibility ran out. Canceling the technique takes a 2-second wind-up, and he had 3 seconds left, so he didn't dare. So he dropped into the annihilation zone and aimed a kick at the small round thing sitting in it. Gently, very gently, because he was frightened of it now. And that was his last mistake. Because Little Knight had spent her first 2 days getting flattened repeatedly by her eldest sister in the pet space, and Little Jew, who is a lot of things but is not a bad teacher, had been telling her the entire time to watch for the moment the enemy slows down. She saw a slow kick coming. She jumped it. Then she landed on his face, and her tail, with a galaxy in it, came around across his head hard enough to stagger him even through invincibility, because invincibility stops damage and does not stop momentum. And in the stagger, she got both front paws into his mouth and pried it open. His invincibility ended 1 second later with a breath of starlight already inside him. The annihilation field went out, which is how the entire city learned the caster was dead. "Belch," said Little Knight, sitting down in the crater. Then she rested for a moment, because a 5-second breath is a lot for a 2-day-old, and then she got up on 4 short legs and hopped back over to me. Absolute silence, on every wall, from every side. "Good girl. Peanuts when we get home." She shoved her head into my neck. And 300 Fengtian students and 1 vice dean stared at a small dragon covered in stars and did the arithmetic. The 4th one. There was a 4th holy dragon, and nobody had known it existed until it ate a demon spawn. Then the cult's core members did the sums and decided they still had this. 12 level 85s, a horde of Shattered Realm monsters, tens of thousands of believers, against 1 dragon tamer, 1 level 87 dean, and 300 students averaging level 45. "Brothers, charge! Take the dragon tamer alive, and the great ones will reward us. They may even grant us superior blood." And their believers went in howling, with their eyes red, absolutely delighted to die, because in their heads, dying in front of a demon spawn is not a tragedy, it's a promotion. But something had changed on our wall. "We can't beat the level 85s, somebody yelled, "but you think we can't beat you? Charge! Don't let these people near Brother Wei. I knelt down 5 minutes ago. I'm not doing that twice." 300 students from a top academy came off that wall, and they were good. There's exactly 1 road up to that wall and 2 entry points, so 100 students on each, rotating attack and defense, could hold it, and among them were beast tamers and summoners, and, critically, necromancers. Necromancers on a battlefield are a compounding problem. Every corpse your side makes gets back up on your side. So the cult watched an enemy of 200 or 300 turn into 200 or 300 plus a menagerie, plus a growing army of their own dead. And that's when the 18 core members realized something had gone very wrong. I have never once been interested in defending. Little Knight, Little Jew, Little Han, Little Yu, 4 shapes came out of the pet space and did not stay small. The storm off 4 sets of wings opening at once knocked the monsters and the believers off their feet across the whole approach, and Shen Yu's barrier shook with students behind it. 18 level 85 powerhouses looked up at 4 holy dragons filling the sky over Anning City and understood their situation completely. Little Jew, who has the shortest temper in the family, brought a burning claw down without waiting to be told. "Run! Forget the dragon tamer. Run!" Which is the difference between the core and the believers. The believers were charging a holy dragon with joy in their hearts. The core had joined for money and for the promise of a perfect body, and neither of those is worth dying for. They scattered, and Little Knight opened Annihilation Black Hole over the entire city. Anything with a single one of its 4 stats below hers gets pulled in. Those men had enormous primary stats, and had never put a point into the other 3, which is how everybody builds. And Little Knight was sitting at 17,000 across the board, with a berserk buff on top. There was nowhere on that map to stand. They went into the dark, senses gone, skills gone, talents gone, equipment triggers gone, and then they went in. Little Yu, meanwhile, had caught one and was holding him upside down and dripping on him while he screamed and twisted, laughing to herself the whole time, and I had to call her off. She threw him into the black hole and came stomping over 200 meters tall to be praised. Then it was over. 1 level 89 demon spawn, 18 level 85 powerhouses, tens of thousands of believers, and a shattered realm's worth of monsters. The Black Blood Demon Sect's entire operation against Anning City in under 20 minutes, and the last thing any of it accomplished was making 4 young dragons angry at the same time. They came for the one place I'd have burned the world over. They didn't get within a kilometer of it. And Li Ma called me that evening to ask, in the specific tone of a woman who had been teleported across a province without warning and had been given no explanation by anyone, whether I had eaten. The country did not treat Anning City as an isolated incident because it wasn't one. 40 cities went up in the same afternoon, and the reason it was possible is that the Black Blood demon sect had spent a decade putting people inside, including the man who ran the defense of an entire war zone, who had been signing my orphanage's paperwork for years while wearing a black robe under his uniform. The front line was already bleeding. The Rift had eaten a hard battle 3 months earlier, and the elite legions were still short. So the state did the only thing available, which was to reach back into the universities. Every third year over level 80 got called up early, and because I had just publicly killed a level 89 demon spawn on national feeds, so did I, at 19, as a first year. I did not argue about it. I want to say one thing plainly here because I've been sarcastic about most of the rest of this. I grew up in a building with a roof that leaks and 40 children in it. That building is standing because this country puts young people in front of a hole in the world and holds them there. Some of them are the seniors from my own campus. They pay for the lights that Li Ma cooks under. The sect walked into my city to take me, and the way they chose to do it was to go for those children first. So when the demon extermination operation opened at the Tianan City camp, I did not need to be asked twice, and I made one promise to myself walking in. They came for the orphanage. They are going to pay for the orphanage. Then I registered under a different name. Not modesty, arithmetic. The sect's leadership wants me alive. The instant Li Wei appears on a duty roster in a demon extermination camp, every operation in that province reorients around capturing me, which means every civilian near me becomes a lever. So a tall figure in a black robe and a black mask walked into the Tianan City demon extermination camp and put a single name on the sheet: Li Long. The camp was mercenaries, bounty hunters, adventurers on contract, and a handful of Legion regulars, all of them working for battle points, and none of them thrilled about a masked kid nobody had heard of. Li Long. Right. The mockery lasted until the equipment check. Because I put Droma's wish on the table, and Droma's wish does not stay a staff, it has forms: sniper, shotgun, staff, and in Dragon Sniper configuration, a 2-meter ice blue anti-materiel rifle with an ancient Frost Dragon's aura still bleeding off it. It has a name: Frost's Wrath. Nobody in that camp had ever seen a semi-divine artifact in person. Several of them stopped being unfriendly and started being extremely friendly, which was worse. The campaign ran a month. I am not going to pretend the fighting itself was hard. Cult strongholds are level 80s, and there were 4 holy dragons in my collar. What was hard was that the sect does not fight like an army. It fights like an infection. They don't hold ground, they hold people. Every stronghold we cracked had civilians in it who weren't hostages, they were staff. Every safe house had a landlord who knew. Every third informant was feeding both directions. So it wasn't a war, it was a month of walking into rooms and finding out who was in them. And after the second week, the cultists started begging by name. Qin Long, I was wrong. Li Long, please. They didn't know whose face was under the mask. They only knew that the masked one showed up wherever their plans were. Because that was the whole trick. I wasn't hunting cells. I was standing in the middle of their operations before they ran. The sect noticed. Of course they noticed. And so, about 3 weeks in, they tried something clever, which I'll give them credit for because it nearly worked on somebody. They ran a sleight of hand. A loud, obvious, expensive-looking operation on one side of the province designed to pull the extermination force across the map, while the real move went in quietly somewhere else. And they sent somebody to talk to me. Not to fight, to recruit. He found me between operations, and he was polite about it, and he made the pitch that has worked on tens of thousands of people in this country. Your qualifications are extraordinary. Join us, and we will give you the perfect transformation. Look at what you are. Look at what you could be. Perfect body, perfect regeneration, multiple lives, growth that compounds with every fight. Stop being a filthy human. Come up. He was still talking when I asked him where the real operation was. He was very surprised that I'd asked. The sect's problem, in the end, was that they had built their entire strategy around one assumption: that the masked one was a mercenary with a good gun. They had not accounted for the fact that the masked one had been standing in the middle of their plans for 3 weeks because he does not have to guess. Divine perception is an SSS talent, and it does not tell me what people say. It tells me when something is about to happen to me, and by the 3rd week I had gotten very good at reading which way the wrongness pointed. The diversion emptied out, and the real op walked into 4 holy dragons. That was the local leadership. That was every asset the Black Blood Demon sect had left standing in that province, in one building, because they'd concentrated for the one strike they thought was safe. It ended in about the time it takes to walk across a room. The demonic calamity was over. I had said one thing to myself walking into that camp, and I had said it in an ordinary voice, the way you note down an errand. They came for the orphanage. They are going to pay for the orphanage. They paid. Not the sect. The sect has a leader named Mo Yan, who is a level 191 4th-tier war god, and men like that do not die because a province burns. But their 10-year plan for the Dragon Kingdom's interior went into the ground that month, along with everything they'd spent a decade building. Ding. The system settled up, and it settled up hard. Rewards, battle points, a breakthrough stone. Frost's Wrath came back from the forge upgraded. The academy paid out academic credits by the sackful, and a great many important people in a great many departments took a very long look at the campaign records for a masked contractor named Li Long, and then at the enrollment records at Fengtian Academy, and did some arithmetic, and did not put any of it in writing. Then I went home one more time before the World Tournament. The gate still doesn't lock. I've offered to fix it twice. Li Ma likes it that way because the children can come and go, which is the entire point of the building. 40 kids swarmed me in the courtyard. 4 holy dragons let every one of them climb on, because they've had that ranking sorted out since the first week, and the ranking goes me, them, the orphanage, and then the rest of the universe as garbage. I cooked. Li Ma sat in the doorway and watched. She still has not asked me a single question about any of it. She never will. In 7 years, she has never once demanded to know where I've been, and I understand now that this is not in curiosity. It is the most generous thing anybody has ever done for me. She asked if I'd been eating properly. I said yes. She said I looked thin, which is objectively false, and put more food in front of me. The departure ceremony was 3 days later, in front of the whole academy. 11 months earlier, I stood on a playground in a 5th-tier city holding a certificate that said Dragon Tamer, and 3,000 people laughed at me at once, and a principal put his hands on my shoulders and told me that my class had research value and that I should avoid monsters and try to feed myself. I am 19. I am the individual champion and the team champion of the Dragon Kingdom qualifiers. I am the first dragon tamer in recorded history to hold a holy dragon, and I hold floor. I broke the record on every dungeon this academy owns, and I killed a demon spawn on the wall of my own home city with a 2-day-old dragon I threw underarm. The orphanage has staff now. Li Ma works one job. Nobody has laughed in a while. We shipped out for the City of Dawn the next morning, 64 nations, the world stage, the thing the whole year had been pointed at. And I want to end on the thing I actually think about at night, because it isn't the tournament. It's a head in a snowfield, Droma, ancient frost giant dragon. Over level 900 in life, which in the language of the upper world means she was not far from being called a god. And somebody killed her and took her apart and scattered the pieces down here in the lower world for teenagers to farm for loot. I have her staff. It's called Droma's Wish, and I've been carrying it for 2 months. And on my back, I carry a semi-divine greatsword I pulled out of a chest in a place called Barthazar Temple, and I never once asked myself who Barthazar was, because I was 19 and busy, and it hit very hard. I know now. Barthazar is a god, one of 6, and what a god does with his free time is come down here and hunt dragons for sport, because he has a grudge with 2 ancient sacred dragons up there that he cannot settle up there, so he settles it down here on their children. That's who Droma was. That's why her head was in a hole. So here's where I actually stand, at 19, with a trophy in each hand and a plane ticket to the Holy Empire. I am carrying a god's sword on my back, and I am raising 4 of the things he kills for fun. I owed Little Knight peanuts, by the way. I set it on a city wall with a dead demon spawn cooling behind us, and she has the memory of a filing cabinet, and she reminded me about it 4 separate times on the flight out. She got them, 6 kilos of them, shelled by hand, by me, at 2 in the morning in a hotel in the City of Dawn, while her sisters supervised and offered no help of any kind. That is the actual shape of my life now, and I would not trade 1 hour of it. They sleep on my chest, all 4 of them, every night, and little Yu bites my face in her sleep, and little Ju kicks, and little Han curls up by my ear, and little Knight lies very politely along my arm and doesn't move at all. Somebody up there does not know they exist yet. He's going to.